Hey there, want to make your voice heard at a Board of Supervisors meeting? We're all ears. Here's how you can get involved. First, hop online and look at the agendas. This will give you the scoop on what's coming up before the board. Each agenda item includes a brief description of the issue, the recommendations, and potential impacts. If you need more detail, check out the detailed reports online. Those are called board letters. Then, decide if you want to speak at Tuesday's general legislative session or Wednesday's land use session. You'll have 3 opportunities to have your say. Let's start with non-agenda public comment. This is your chance to talk about things that aren't on the agenda, but try and keep your topic related to county government. For non-agenda public comments, you can speak at either the Tuesday or Wednesday session, but not both. So pick your day accordingly. And keep in mind, the board can't act on the spot. They'll refer your comments to the Chief Administrative Officer, who will look into the issue. Last thing, the board will hear from the first 10 speakers, 5 in person and 5 by phone at the beginning of the session. Then all the remaining speakers will get their chance to speak after the discussion items. During the consent agenda, the board handles a bunch of routine items with 1 vote. If you want to comment on an item, keep it simple. For example, I'm John Doe speaking on item 5, and I agree with approving the contract. Discussion items are the main event where the board debates before making a decision. Want to speak at one of the meetings? It's really easy. Just hop online and fill out a quick request form at publiccomment.sandiegocounty.gov. Pick the meeting you're interested in, hit the register button, then fill in your details. Make sure to include a phone number if you plan on speaking by phone. Prefer speaking at the podium in the board chamber? No problem. Just pick the in-person option. After that, just check off the agenda items you want to talk about and let them know you're for, against, or neutral on them. Hit register and you're good to go. A confirmation email will land in your inbox to wrap it up. If you're speaking by phone, the email will include the instructions for how to dial in. Be sure to submit your request early. Once public comment begins on the agenda item, we can't take any more requests to speak. And if you have documents, hand them to the deputy clerk when it's your turn to speak at the podium. Now, you get 2 minutes to speak, but if lots of people want to talk, it might get cut to 1 minute. So, you might want to consider writing 2 sets of comments, one for 2 minutes, another one for 1. That way, if time's cut, you won't be scrambling. There's also a countdown clock at the podium to keep you on track. Once you're at the podium, stay on topic. Stick to the current agenda item. If you stray off topic, you might get a gentle nudge to get back to the point. Keep your comments related to the agenda item's recommendations because that's what the board is relying on to make a decision. Also, speak directly to the board. They're the ones making the decision. When your time's up, it's up. Overstaying might mean getting muted or even asked to leave. Now for some ground rules. For safety, keep aisles and doorways clear. If there isn't a seat, head across the hall to room 302 or the 4th floor balcony to watch the meeting. Respect is huge. Everyone should feel heard. That means you, other speakers, and the Board of Supervisors. Disruptive behavior gets 1 warning, and after that, a deputy sheriff might show you the door. So let's keep it respectful. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. Remember, we're all here to make a difference.
Hello, thank you all for being here. I now call the January 27th, 2026 San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting to order. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. There are communities in the San Diego region that face unjust conditions and circumstances related to the environments in which they live. The tribal nations of the San Diego region are an example of one community that has historically faced such injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most Indian county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups: the Kumeyaay, Degeno, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Kaiwea. We aspire to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Andrew, please call the roll for today's session.
Thank you, Chair Lawson-Remer. I'd like to note Supervisor Anderson is absent. With that, Supervisor Desmond.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Aguirre.
Here.
Vice Chair Montgomery Stepp. And Chair Lawson-Remer.
Here. Thank you all. Many of you may have noticed on your way into the county building that the county and American flags are at half-staff. I ordered that on all county property over the weekend to show our mourning and real alarm regarding the tragic shooting deaths of Minnesota's residents Renee Good and Alex Jeffrey Peretti by federal immigration and customs enforcement officers known as ICE. Today, during this time of crisis, we stand in solidarity with the people of Minnesota as they ask for accountability for these horrific and unnecessary acts of violence. This incident creates concern regarding a constitutional breakdown, which we cannot ignore. We will now have Father Joseph Tabigi deliver the invocation, and Chris Pierce will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge.
Let us bow our heads as we ask the God of the universe for a blessing, that our restless hearts may rest in thee. Praise to thee, God of the universe and Father of us all. You have established the world for us to live in and directed us to supervise as good stewards of thy gifts. Look then with love on the people of this community and keep us safe in your service. Guide the members of this board of supervisors to know that everything they do begins with your inspiration and continues with your saving help. Grant them wisdom to discern the needs of our community. Help them work together to make wise decisions and deliberations, not influenced by self-interest or greed, but for the good of all. Bring success to their work today and reward them for the good they do, for you have chosen them to serve your people. Sanctify us, Father of light, living as Lord and ruler forever, that peace may reign in our land and in our hearts, forever and ever.
Please place your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin the meeting today, I'll take a moment to address our House rules. Public engagement is the cornerstone of a transparent and accountable government, and these Board of Supervisors meetings are a primary venue where all San Diegans can make your voices heard. Under the board's rules, speakers may not use loud, shouting, threatening, impertinent, slanderous, profane, or abusive language to any member of the board, staff, or the general public. Most specifically, all remarks and questions must remain on topic during the duration of your speaking time and must be addressed to the board and not to county staff. Any speaker who engages in comments that break these rules will be issued a warning, and after one warning, you'll be asked to leave the chamber for the remainder of the meeting. Speakers threatening violence may be reported to law enforcement and removed. This is a space for community engagement, deliberation, and progress, not for harassment, violence, and hate. We now proceed with non-agenda public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within our jurisdiction, but not on our meeting agenda. The only action we may take is a referral to the CAO. Speakers may speak once per meeting for non-agenda public comment, either today or tomorrow, but not at both sessions, and you may select which session at your convenience. In accordance with board rules, for any discussion item with 10 or more speakers, individuals will have 1 minute to share their opinion at the chair's discretion. A reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance receive twice the allotted time for their comments. And according to the board's rules of procedures, audience members may not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or do anything that disrupts the proceedings. Again, if you disrupt our meeting or violate the rules, you will be given a warning. After that warning, if you disrupt the meeting again, you will be directed to leave the chamber for the remainder of the meeting. Andrew, please call the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 10 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 3 in person and 7 requesting to speak by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward Jock Rodriguez, Marco Espinoza, and allegedly Audra. If I've called your name, please come forward. I ask you to stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and I'll ask you to begin by stating your name for the audio record.
Jock Rodriguez, father of Saxon Rodriguez, in custody death, July 20th, 2021. Again, I'm addressing this board. This will be the 3rd meeting. And I was ambushed at the last meeting I was here on the south side of this building by a sheriff's detective. Inappropriate conduct that I'll be dealing with. I'm confused why you guys didn't understand. I'm thinking this thing isn't working. Where are my arrests? Felony arrests for fraud, waste, and abuse on the back end of a USC 18 subsection 242-241 case. I see all these people that are responsible in government and law enforcement meeting together, but no one's ever called me to come and address all these charges that I have lined up for them. Am I gonna arrest this board and put you with these charges associated to these officials? No one's called. This inappropriate conduct at the last meeting, unacceptable. Misconduct, right here on the property. Someone needs to call me. How many times do I gotta say it? The sheriff's been unresponsive, the DA, the Attorney General Rob Bonta, the governor, Chief Roxana Kennedy. Where's my detective that botched my son's case? None of you have called me. This is a homicide murder. I should be calling the sergeant at arms up here to read you your Miranda rights and take you all into custody for aiding and abetting. Someone better call me.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Afternoon, Marco Espinoza. First things first, I brought in my little pins from when I volunteered as an election poll worker. I know I briefly had mentioned them once before. I'll just place them up here. They started in 2010 and they go to 2014. And all in different locations in the county as well. And then a little housekeeping. Sorry, gonna step on a toe or two. For the Monday, June 9th, 2025, 4 p.m. closed session meeting. On the minutes, it's recorded that Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer was present. However, she was not. Sorry. And also the clerk, Andrew Potter, you did not call at the time, Chair Pro Tem Supervisor Joel Anderson for the roll call. I found all this out as I was reviewing some videos for what I really want to get to. Supervisor Desmond was at the 5 p.m. meeting that day. You had mentioned that while you were going to support the measure that was at hand, you had concerns about Section 31, Section 2.1.6, which was the one-time bonuses that were being given out to county employees. And I finally read that today. Sorry it took so long. And I guess my comment is just, it is, I understand the concern of using reserve funds. You have them for a reason, for emergencies. But I suppose it was nice that at the very least, in the fiscal responsibility section, that they minimized every year. So that's all I have. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. Final call for allegedly Audra. Not seeing any movement in the chamber. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments. We'll start with our first caller.
Peggy Blocker. 3 of you have chosen to advance the social equity cannabis program despite opposition from the 2 supervisors whose constituents will be directly impacted, from planning groups, residents, local leaders, parents, medical communities, and youth advocates. And despite data showing equity experiment failures, business and tax downturns, those 3 votes impose unrepresentative control over communities that don't want marijuana expansion. That is not equity. It reflects disregard for scientific evidence and real-world data showing adverse impacts on land use, environment, public safety and health, neighborhood character and quality of life. It ignores troubling outcomes acknowledged by jurisdictions now considering reversal of similar failed policies. What you've also disregarded is the science, not deceptive industry rhetoric, but real science. Scientific evidence shows commercialization of high-potency marijuana poses extreme harm. We do not want our children victimized by marijuana-related poisonings, anxiety, depression, addiction, cancer, psychosis, brain alterations, even suicide, and climbing ER admissions. Please don't lecture about a supposed moral responsibility. We understand moral responsibility. It doesn't include imposing psychotropic drug commerce on unwilling families and neighborhoods. Don't lecture about legality. Cannabis is legal, but legal doesn't mean safe nor moral. If your goal is truly moral action, then look honestly at scientific evidence that challenges the wisdom of this decision. Weigh the evidence and accept responsibility for foreseeable harm. Virtue signaling.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. In public debates about drug policy, we often hear the claim that marijuana is no worse than alcohol and therefore should be treated the same. That comparison may be convenient, but according to decades of neuroscience and clinical research, it is a false equivalence. As Dr. Bertha Madras, a Harvard Medical School neuroscientist and expert in addiction, explains, marijuana and alcohol produce fundamentally different medical and psychiatric harms. Treating them as interchangeable ignores those differences and puts public health at risk. Take one example, vomiting. Alcohol-related vomiting is typically an acute, self-limited response to excessive intake. Cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, by contrast, is a chronic condition caused by long-term marijuana use. Patients experience relentless, cyclical vomiting, sometimes dozens of times per day, leading to dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and repeated emergency room visits. The only effective treatment is complete abstinence from marijuana. These are not comparable conditions. At the population level, marijuana's impacts extend beyond individual choice. Use is strongly associated with later opioid misuse, worse educational outcomes than alcohol, and higher addictive potential, especially with today's high-potency products. Marijuana use by adults also increases the likelihood of use among their children and young adults, undermining the idea that adult consumption doesn't affect youth. Alcohol is undeniably harmful and remains a major public health challenge. Acknowledging marijuana's distinct risks does not excuse alcohol's damage. It simply rejects the idea that one harmful substance justifies another. Marijuana should be treated differently because it is different, and sound policy depends on evidence. So please continue to educate yourself on these issues that seriously affect.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I participated in the Board of Supervisors meeting on January 14th, where the Social Equity Cannabis Program was provided. I was very surprised that the staff report that day did not include the information my planning group members saw, considered, and registered their opinions about when the Social Equity Cannabis Program was presented to my planning group and at the listening sessions. The staff report on January 14th did not include one of the alternatives from the previous PowerPoint presentation, which was Alternative 1, no project retention of current cannabis regulations. It seems very unfair and unkind for the staff report to present a biased report that day, eliminating one of the two viewpoints. And the viewpoints were, number one, those who wanted to benefit from the cultivation under sale of intoxicating drug, and viewpoint number two, those who actually live in the backcountry and want something better like health services, improved code enforcement responses, and even more robust attendance of supervisors, staff at the planning groups. This favoritism should not be part of any county decision-making progress. Perhaps the Board of Supervisors knew that no county planning groups wanted more marijuana businesses, so a fair and impartial presentation was circumvented on January 14th by providing a clearly discriminatory report. It colors any of the good this Board of Supervisors is trying to accomplish to prevent such a prejudiced staff report. Thank you for hearing me this afternoon.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Becky Rapp, and I'd like to speak to the January 14th meeting, as it was a sad day for San Diego County and a deeply concerning example of how informed community voices can be sidelined. At that meeting, planning group chairs from Valley Center, Fallbrook, and Bonsall, unpaid volunteers appointed by this county, came before you with well-researched, site-specific testimony. They detailed serious risks the proposed socially equitable cannabis program poses to our backcountry, including threats to groundwater, increased fire risk, impacts to sensitive habitats, limited access to health care and emergency services, and the lack of funding for roads, schools, and basic infrastructure. These concerns are based on the lived reality of rural San Diego County residents, yet their testimony was ignored. Instead, the decision centered on personal narratives rather than environmental review, public health impacts, and land use compatibility. Decisions of this scale demand evidence-based analysis and responsible planning. Invoking equity while ignoring science, public health, and the residents most affected by this program is a contradiction. Equity that excludes impacted communities is not equity at all. Community planning groups exist to inform this board when proposed policies conflict with real-world conditions. When that expertise is ignored, the county loses trust. I urge this board to pause, recenter science and public health, and genuinely engage with the residents who will bear the long-term consequences of these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the final caller.
Gambler Hermes. Look, I'm a pattern recognizer. INTP. You guys know it. You guys had me take a test. 500 and something freaking questions that points it out. Everything that I did is, studied. It's predictable. That's number one. Number two, I want to point out the patterns that I see happening right now. The reason why Trump went for Minnesota is because it's freezing cold, and the majority of the people that are going to champion this and cause interference on the federal level is primarily going to be people directly tied to particular NGO groups. They're the ones organizing this stuff. So he wanted to find this map. Right before he pulled out, that map was discovered. Names, phone numbers, all that information. Okay? Now, if I am correct on the NVRA regulations and all that stuff, and yeah, I'll be happy to go ahead and force your hand on the NVRA because direct fishing is not allowed. But direct, locations to look, that is carved out through the NVRA regulations. So Tara telling me that she understands the problem and then filing a restraining order not to address it is clearly indication that you recognize the problem and in covering up. Or you could go ahead and provide me the documentation that you're covering up, that you will not provide Donald Trump. I mean, it's in the law. You now have a lawyer that knows that law.
Thank you. And Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes a request for non-agenda public communication for this session.
Okay, thank you all very much. We now move on to discussion item number 1, budget workshop, to discuss process and receive community input on budget priorities. I'd like to share some framing remarks before our staff presentation. We are really intentionally trying to do our budget process differently this year at the county. In the past, often the public has been asked to weigh in with budget feedback and priorities after most of the big decisions were already made, and that's during the official budget process in June. And that certainly is an important time to have feedback on the CAO's budget, but from my perspective is insufficient and does not allow our really important voices throughout our community to be incorporated and those priorities to be considered as the budget and the CO's budget is constructed. So tonight is about hearing from folks while there is an opportunity for this input to shape the direction of the budget before the CAO has put the budget together. So thank you, Ebony, for all the work we know you're about to do. We want to really understand what folks are experiencing right now, where people are feeling pressure, and what should be prioritized. So this is an early step, but it's also a small one, albeit important. We still have quite a bit more work beyond this to do to make the county budget and the county budget process more transparent and accountable. This by no means, in my view, is a sufficient step, but it is a small and important and necessary step. So this budget and all budgets really reflect who government is working for, and my view is that community voices should shape those decisions from the beginning. So the first portion of this meeting is a presentation from staff about the challenges and context we're facing in the budget process this year. After that, there'll be an opportunity for board members to ask questions. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll hear public comment from community members. So I'd like to hand the floor to our county team for a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, board members, for your leadership in hosting this afternoon's budget workshop. We're really excited to be here and to share this information, and I want to thank everyone who came out today and those of you who are watching remotely for participating. I'm Ebony Shelton. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the County of San Diego, and in my role, I oversee county operations and the team that's responsible for hundreds of programs and services, and work closely with the board to ensure that resources are allocated effectively to meet social health and safety needs of San Diegans. Today's presentation is an overview of how the county budget works, as well as details about the fiscal challenges we face and the principles that guide us as we move through the decision-making process. Public input is a critical part of this process, and your feedback helps to shape priorities and ensures that our budget reflects the needs and the values of the communities that we serve. We gather input year-round, and this presentation is an important step in building transparency and trust as we prepare for the upcoming budget cycle and the difficult decisions that may need to be made in this challenging environment. Today, you'll hear from our Chief Financial Officer, Joan Brockie, Amy Thompson from the Chief Financial Office team, and our Economic Development and Government Affairs Director, Matthew Parr. So let's take a look at what's on today's agenda. We'll cover a lot of ground today. We'll share information about the county's operational plan and its purpose, the county's roles and services, budget fundamentals, including county financial resources and major expenses, the budget development process and the board's key role in it, and current challenges and key considerations, and again, how the public can participate. The County of San Diego is one of 58 counties in the state of California and one of its 14 charter counties. San Diego is one of the state's largest counties, serving over 3 million residents. It's divided into 5 districts and governed by a 5-member Board of Supervisors. We operate under the leadership of the board, which sets priorities and approves the county's 2-year operational plan. With that as context, here's how the county's strategic planning process connects to how we build a budget. All of the county's strategic planning is guided by our vision, mission, and our values. These 3 pillars are the foundation on which we provide essential services equitably and efficiently to support a resilient region where every resident thrives. And we do that through accountability, innovation, stewardship, equity, and collaboration. At the same time, our general management system helps us to match long-term strategic goals and objectives with annual operations and financial planning. Long-term strategic goals in our strategic plan, that is, the strategic initiatives of sustainability, equity, empowerment, community, and justice are the framework for the county to set measurable goals as an organization. Along with these North Stars, our county's guiding principles of being kind, curious, and bold while doing the right thing define both how to work with each other and the communities we serve. We think of our strategy as the destination, and the budget charts the road to how to get there. This is our backdrop and backed by performance measures that show results to help us identify detours and the right course when needed. It's an approach that helps us to fund what matters, track outcomes, and adjust when conditions change. We take a strategic and considered approach so that we can deliver programs and services that reflect and strengthen the communities that we serve. The county delivers a wide range of services to everyone who lives in the region, both in the unincorporated areas as well as in our 18 incorporated cities. Some of these are mandated services, meaning that the county is required to provide them, while others are discretionary, areas where the county has expanded and added services beyond the requirements to support the community. These services fall into 3 main categories. There are state programs, regional services, and municipal services for our unincorporated communities. These programs and services are delivered locally within the funding and policy parameters that are set by the state. Specifically, the county implements programs on behalf of the state of California, including social services, foster care, and health programs, while also providing services for the entire region, such as administering elections, assessing and collecting property taxes, operating detention facilities, and ensuring environmental health. And for our residents in the unincorporated area, the county provides services similar to those that are offered by cities, including fire protection, road maintenance and flood control, libraries and parks, law enforcement, land use planning, and regulatory decisions. All of these programs and services require funding support. And with that in mind, I'll turn the presentation over to Joan.
Okay, thank you, Ebony. Our multi-billion-dollar county budget is funded through 2 primary categories of funding. Nearly half of the budget comes from federal, state, and other government sources. The other half is funded through property taxes, fees for county services, and other local funding sources. Recognizing this, any projected state deficit will definitely impact the county's budget. Because much of our revenue comes from the state, Adjustments to funding levels and services pose a serious risk to our next budget. With these challenges in mind, county staff are actively reviewing the governor's proposed budget for the state for potential impacts and will continue monitoring areas that affect the county. Matthew will provide more details on state and federal impacts later during today's workshop. We match the resources that we have with our legal and other responsibilities to the state, taxpayers, and our stakeholders with the policy guidance of our governing board. The county faces rising costs, and as previously mentioned, federal and state funding concerns remain significant. Funding from both the state and federal government continues to shift, and in areas that directly impact county operations. These uncertainties make planning and sustainability a constant challenge. That is why we manage resources with an eye on long-term sustainability, balancing service delivery, fiscal responsibility, and future needs. The board sets priorities for the region, which currently include public safety, housing and homelessness, behavioral health, public health, and climate action. With their direction, those of us active in building the budget, which seems like the entire county at one point in the year, uses this information from various sources, including data and performance metrics, to gain perspective on community needs, measure program effectiveness, and inform long-term planning. Through data analysis, we can spot trends and patterns that lead to our ability to make smarter decisions. Even with all of these considerations, we could not do what we do without public input. Community feedback shapes budget priorities and service improvements, which is why we actively seek and gather input year-round. The result of this deliberative process is the county's operational plan, which we also call the OP plan, and this includes the county's budget. The county's OP plan is essential for several reasons, including counties in California are legally required by the State of California's County Budget Act to complete an annual budget process and operate according to an adopted annual budget. The Act sets the process, due dates, and deliverables for the board, and those are a part of our board's annual calendar. It also requires that county budgets be balanced. In other words, we can't adopt a plan that spends funds that we don't have. In addition to state rules, the county's charter and other policies support the budgeting and planning process so that governance standards and strategic priorities are always considered throughout the whole process. Further, our OP plan is a critical component of the county's general management system, which supports constant collaboration to ensure strong financial management practices. These practices include the annual formulation and approval of a 2-year OP plan, a process that reflects the county's recognized history of responsive financial stewardship and strategic planning. The board is required to adopt a budget annually, which covers the first year of the OP plan. The OP plan's first year is the county's adopted budget. The second year represents recommended funding and is approved by the board in principle for planning purposes. When the board adopts this plan, it gives county staff spending authority and sets staffing levels delivered through a compensation ordinance. It also establishes operational goals that align with the county's overall strategy and reports on performance toward these goals. The budget is developed through a collaborative process with multiple phases, including development, review, revision, and public engagement. This is intentional and required by law. For the past 23 years, the county's budget has earned the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association, an international professional association for government finance and budgeting. We earned this distinction for various reasons. Among them is our financial planning process. The county's financial planning happens through the development of the budget each year. While the budget for a given fiscal year, for a given fiscal year is finalized between February and July, the activities leading up to this final stage occur throughout the year. This slide shows some key milestones that occur every year in the budget process. We're currently developing the recommended budget. This is the stage when every county department prepares its projected operational budget. These departments base their projections on operational needs along with anticipated costs and resources. In addition to these departmental projections, the county's 5-year financial forecast is used as an important overall planning tool. The 5-year forecast directly influences the development of the op plan and helps us plan not just for today, but for long-term stability. This stage leads into the budget, which is multi-phased. As reflected on this slide, the first phase is the Chief Administrative Officer's recommended operational plan. Think of this as a first draft. It includes budget recommendations from the CAO and requests from county departments, both informed by the 5-year financial forecast and what we understand of the current regulatory landscape, community needs, and county priorities. Next is the change letter phase. This is where proposed updates to the plan come in from many sources, including county departments, members of the board, and the public, and any updated information related to federal and state actions. The change letter phase includes the public budget hearing. Once the budget hearing is concluded, the recommended budget is revised, and this revised recommended budget will be reviewed by the board. The board deliberates and votes to adopt a budget for the coming fiscal year. This adopted op plan typically combines the CAO recommended plan with revisions from the change letter process. It should be noted that once adopted, the budget isn't static. Throughout the fiscal year, changes are incorporated by the board through actions, and amounts are carried forward from the prior year. Excuse me. This is what we call the amended budget. These budget changes happen in a few different ways. How is a budget changed? The short answer is with approval of the governing board. To address operational needs that arise throughout the year, budget adjustments are recommended by the CAO in quarterly board letters, typically in December, March, and May. In addition, other board letters from board members or county staff often include recommendations that make budgetary changes, providing funding or spending authority for various initiatives that arise after the budget has been adopted. Board decisions impact the budget in a few ways. As the fiscal year progresses, at nearly every session, the board votes on recommendations for county programs and services that often have costs. Sometimes there's additional funding needed, at other times there may be savings. Some recommendations involve things or funding sources that weren't envisioned when the budget was adopted. To help the board make informed decisions, every board letter includes a fiscal impact statement because board policy requires staff to explain how the budget will be affected if the recommendations are approved. Think of the fiscal impact statement as a price tag for each board letter. This language is in every board letter. An important question for both members of the board and the public at large is, how many votes does it take for the board to take budgetary action? State law dictates that some budgetary actions require a supermajority vote of the board. That means 4 votes of 5. You'll see that the government code references are referenced at the bottom of the slide in the font that's very hard to read. But to summarize, those portions of the County Budget Act state that recommendations that increase the overall budget, that is, seek additional authority to spend, generally require 4 votes. These recommendations are clearly identified in board letters. The county is currently operating under an $8.63 billion budget. As we consider where we're going, let's take a look at where we currently stand to help us understand the overall structure of the county's budget. The current year's budget, that is fiscal year 25-26, was a 1% increase from the prior year's budget. It includes over 20,000 staff years, which was a decrease of nearly 1% compared to the prior fiscal year. The overall budgetary increase is primarily driven by investments in a skilled and innovative workforce, increased funding for behavioral health, supporting mental health and substance use programs, public safety investments focused on critical infrastructure, fire and medical services, and continued support for the sheriff medical contract, as well as public defender activities and those of the medical examiner's office. These increases were offset by a decrease of one-time costs in the county's capital program. All told, between the increases and the decreases, the board adopted a structurally balanced budget. With rising costs and uncertainty at the state and federal levels, the fiscal year 25-26 budget included a strategy to reduce costs, reallocate resources, and streamline services. In planning our strategy for the current budget, the county team looked for ways to maximize program revenue and make intentional investments of discretionary revenue. In partnership with the board, the county reviewed existing services and prioritized those mandated by law. This meant difficult decisions to reduce some discretionary programs to focus funding on core mandated services. Some examples included reductions in the availability of tenant legal services and other services related to Alzheimer's prevention and educational support, nurse home visiting, and respite care for foster family caregivers. Staff positions were also reduced as they became vacant in certain areas, including those where we outperformed required state metrics, like application processing times for safety net programs. A key strategy for operational efficiency is to review for operational efficiency regularly, assessing and identifying commonalities across departments and consolidating operations when possible. As a result, several restructuring efforts occurred to merge offices and consolidate departments to better align services for the public. These efforts will continue as we further streamline our work and respond to community needs. The county also continued to employ stabilization strategies, applying revenue on a one-time basis to prepare for future growth and bridge funding for core areas. Moreover, needs and funding options were and are continuously analyzed, along with opportunities to maximize program revenue while making deliberate investments of discretionary funds to support priorities. Through this lens, we look to maximize three main types of funding for the county. The first type is program revenue. These funds come from the state and federal government for mandated programs that the law says we're required to provide. They're typically restricted in use and make up the bulk of the county's revenue, about 73% in fiscal year 25-26. Next is general purpose revenue, or we also call it GPR. This is the county's discretionary funding, the dollars we use to support county-specific functions like law enforcement and general government services. The bulk of GPR comes from property taxes and is driven by assessed value, that is, the taxable value of the county's real estate, with other sources including vehicle license fees and occupancy tax. Finally, fund balance is a one-time resource used for one-time expenditures or to address unexpected circumstances. Our administrative code requires that fund balance be used only for one-time purposes and provides clear definitions and examples. Now that we've reviewed the three funding categories, let's take a closer look at program revenue, where it comes from, and why it's such a critical part of the county's budget. As you heard earlier, program revenue supports about 3/4 of the county's budget. So let's look at some examples of what that includes. The largest source of program revenue is intergovernmental revenue, that is funding from the state and federal governments. This includes grant funding, program reimbursements, and gas and user taxes that help fund our roads. Another source is sales tax, which drives realignment revenue and Proposition 172 funding. Realignment revenue refers to the dedicated funds that California counties receive from the state to support services that were shifted or realigned from state to local delivery. Prop 172 funding provides additional support for key public safety programs. We also receive significant funding from fees for services we provide. For example, leasing county real estate, payments from cities for law enforcement services, and fees for permitting, recording, and other county services. All of these funding sources are tied to very specific uses. They either meet program requirements or are payments for services that the county provides. On the next slide, we'll look at an overview of the current budget and how resources are allocated across the county. As mentioned earlier, the majority of funding for the $8.63 billion in fiscal year 25-26, that amount comes from federal and state governments, followed by property tax revenues and fees for services. Now let's look at how this funding supports each of the county's operational groups. The Public Safety Group receives revenue from several sources. Notably, GPR contributes 47% to the Public Safety Department's budgets. This funding supports many of the county's municipal services, including public safety and emergency response. The next largest source is federal and state funds, which make up about 28% of Public Safety Department budgets. The largest share of these intergovernmental revenues come from sales tax-based revenues to support public safety activities. We continue to monitor these on an ongoing basis throughout the year. Charges for services account for 9% of revenue. These include fees for services provided by the county, such as law enforcement contracts. The remaining two categories, other financing sources and use of property taxes, make up the final 16%. These include interest and revenue from special funds. Now let's take a look at the Health and Human Services Agency. HHSA's adopted budget for the fiscal year is $3.5 billion, supporting more than 8,000 staff. As you can see, HHSA's budget is primarily supported by federal and state revenue, about 85% of the total budget. These funds support the agency's safety net programs, including CalWorks, CalFresh, foster care and adoptions, public health and behavioral health services, and housing and homelessness programs. Local dollars make up a much smaller share, about 10% of their overall budget. Across individual departments within the Health and Human Services Agency, there's a consistent reliance on state and federal funding rather than local sources. The remaining 5% comes from charges for current services, other financing sources, use of property taxes, fees, and miscellaneous revenue. This includes things like child abuse fees, marriage license fees, intergovernmental transfers, and fund balances related to tobacco and opioid settlements. LUJ's adopted budget for the current fiscal year is $782 million and supports more than 2,100 staff. And just to be clear, LUJ is the Land Use and Environment Group. The majority of their funding comes from charges for services. These are fees paid by customers for things like permits, inspections, and other county services. Another major source is federal and state funding, which includes grants, revenue for contracts and mandated services, and highway user tax, funds that help maintain our roads. They also have other financing sources, which includes transfers into the general fund from special districts to support operations and maintenance of facilities in those districts, like our county parks. And lastly, let's take a look at finance and general government, or FGG. The FGG budget for the current year is $987 million and includes more than 1,900 staff. They provide essential central services for both the region and the county organization, such as elections, tax collection, assessment and recording, county facilities and fleet management, information technology, human resources, finance, and county council. All of this to keep the county and other jurisdictions running smoothly. Most of the group's funding comes from fees and charges for services billed to other county departments, ensuring cost recovery for those internal services. These internal services are administered through internal service funds, which we'll also call ISFs. This is a way to not only operate efficiently, but also allow the county to draw down more program revenue through the various departments that provide local implementation of federal or state programs. General purpose revenue supports FGG programs and services that do not generate internal charges, including elections and voter registration, labor standards and enforcement activities, community engagement, and economic development, along with arts and culture. County programs rely heavily on general purpose revenue, which is funded by key sources such as sales tax and property tax. Next, we'll explore sales tax trends and how they impact the county's ability to sustain these services. Local consumers are also contributors to county funding through sales tax. Approved by voters in 1993, Proposition 172 provides a half-cent sales tax. This provides 13% of the public safety group budget. Additionally, realignment sales tax supports HHSA with about 23% of their total budget, while adding another 9% to the public safety budget. When looking at sales tax trends, some takeaways include that when we were looking at growth patterns for sales tax, there was a significant spike during COVID due to consumer spending shifts. Additionally, there was a sharp slowdown in fiscal year 23-24, resulting in near zero growth. And when comparing the county to the state, this slide shows actual and estimated growth for the San Diego region and California. Overall, these trends highlight the volatility of sales tax revenue and its impact on funding critical services. Next, let's take a closer look at general purpose revenue, which is the county's discretionary source of revenue, which can be used for any purpose allowed by law. It's also the only revenue under the full control of the board. General purpose revenue represents 23% of the county's total budgeted funding sources and accounts for 30% of the general fund's financing sources. It comes from property and property-related taxes, certain sales and use taxes, and interest earnings. It is critical because it funds programs and services that don't have other programmatic sources of revenue. There are various sources of general purpose revenue, and each contributes to our overall funding. Property tax revenue equals more than $1 billion. It's the largest source, nearly half of the total general fund revenue. Property tax in lieu of vehicle licensing fees makes up almost an additional 30% and helps stabilize funding for essential services, and also relies on property values for growth. State and federal sources represent about 10% and supports programs mandated by higher levels of government. And other revenues contribute nearly 11% and comes from various fees and taxes. Since property taxes make up such a large share of general purpose revenue, let's look now at a snapshot of the region's real estate market through assessed values, which again is the value that is the basis for property taxes. Of the total $2 billion general purpose revenue, property taxes and property tax in lieu of VLF make up about 80%. The primary driver of this revenue is assessed value growth. As you can see, the San Diego region's assessed value has increased steadily. In this slide, we can see results and projections of locally assessed secured property value since 2015-16, and in the light blue chart, the fiscal year 26-27 projection. We closely monitor this information as it is the main driver of the county's property tax revenue. Next, let's take a bigger picture look at general purpose revenue over time. This chart shows historical GPR amounts since fiscal year 15-16. Real estate market and overall economic conditions significantly impact GPR. Steady growth in assessed property values has contributed to consistent GPR increases. And while we are projecting growth in general purpose revenue, the county cost structure continues to grow as well, creating ongoing budgetary pressures. General purpose revenue is allocated by the board at the board's discretion to support essential core services for the public. Reflected here, we have all of the allocation of general purpose revenue by the 4 business groups. The majority of GPR supports the public safety group, followed by allocations for the Health and Human Services Agency, then the Finance and General Government Group, and finally Land Use and Environment. As part of the 5-year planning process, county business groups analyze revenue projections and anticipated cost pressures leading up to the fiscal year 26-27 recommended budget. Some shown on the next 2 slides represent a point-in-time snapshot of departmental requests, which are provided based on California government code. As priorities are set and funding solutions developed, requests are adjusted. As of the last quarterly update provided to the board, the county team was reviewing more than $180 million in requests for funding of ongoing programs and services. In addition to resources requested to respond to federal and state impacts like H.R. 1 and the impacts of Proposition 36, requests also included items related to rising labor costs, inflationary pressures on goods and services, and increased demand for mandated programs. These amounts will continue to come down as we move through the budget process. In addition to ongoing requests, there are more than $310 million in requests for one-time funding of various items. There are costs to ensure county infrastructure, including facilities and information technology, are adequately maintained and updated, as well as requests to make progress towards sustainability efforts and climate action plan goals and other one-time operating costs. The considerations that are noted here are not the full picture of requests and neither of either the request or available resources, but are an effort to be clear and transparent and to provide an idea of some of the pressures that county departments face. We are evaluating general purpose revenue capacity to help fund some of these requests after meeting obligations for salaries and benefits and debt financing. And we are expecting challenging decisions for the upcoming budget. Over the coming months, we'll coordinate countywide strategies to ensure a balanced recommended budget is presented to the board that considers both resources and major cost categories. I'll now turn the presentation over to Amy to highlight some of these cost drivers.
Thank you, Joan. The county's major cost categories include salaries and benefits, which includes retirement costs, services and supplies, with a significant portion of this category being contracted services, totaling $2.1 billion, with $1.4 billion of that in the Health and Human Services Agency, and capital and infrastructure costs. The county's Capital Improvements Needs Assessment, or CINA, reflects an overall cost of $1.1 billion for planned infrastructure and facility projects in fiscal years 2026 through 2031. Costs in this category also include maintenance of infrastructure and information technology. These categories represent the core areas where county resources are allocated to deliver essential services and maintain operations. We'll look now at how the county's current $8.6 billion adopted budget breaks out at the business group level. The Health and Human Services Agency and the Public Safety Group have the largest budgets and are also seeing the most growth. In all groups, the current budget invests in priorities that matter to the community, including in programs focused on well-being, resilience, public safety, infrastructure, and workforce. These priorities include homelessness, housing, behavioral health, safety net services, law enforcement, fire protection, and emergency preparedness. They also include major maintenance, road safety, detention facility improvements, and skilled and innovative staff to deliver services. The budget reflects the board's and community's priorities while maintaining core services and fiscal stability. The current budget sees a slight reduction in staffing of about 1% compared to the previous year's budget. This reduction is based on vacant positions, attrition that occurs during the normal course of business, and a strategic decision to help balance the budget, reflecting an analysis of county programs, mandates, and funding sources. The county's goal of recruiting and retaining a skilled and innovative workforce makes salaries and benefits one of the county's larger costs. Budgeting for salaries and benefits is based on known factors. The main drivers for the increase from prior year include negotiated agreements with labor organizations and, to a lesser extent, step increases for each eligible job classification based on employees' years of service. Other components of salaries and benefits taken into account include contributions to the retirement system based on rates as recommended by the county's retirement administrator, the San Diego County Employees Retirement Association, or SD-SARA, and available program revenues for staffing. Enterprise-level planning activities occur throughout the year to refine salary and benefits projections. These forecasts help ensure accuracy and fiscal responsibility in aligning staffing costs with available resources. A key component of salaries and benefits is the cost of the county's retirement contributions. SD-SARA's annual valuation determines the required retirement contributions for both the county and its employees. Based on SD-SARA's most recent valuation, the funded percentage of the retirement fund increased from 77.5% to over 80% since last year. At the same time, unfunded liability has decreased, improving overall financial health of the retirement fund. For the county, this means the total amount required to be paid to SD-SARA annually will go down. Long-term projections have continued to show improvements in the retirement system's funding, allowing us to plan ahead for the resulting decline in required contributions from the county. In short, this was planned for a long time. We've seen this coming and have already planned for use of any savings. Services and supplies make up another big portion of the county budget. More than 40% of the county's total current budget goes to services and supplies that cover the cost to keep operations running and to deliver services. The county spends about $2.3 billion each year on goods and contracted services, mostly in health and social services, IT, and construction. Last year, 86% of that spending stayed local, showing how important county purchasing is to the regional economy. The county also has a new goal to have 25% of its annual procurement spending go to small local businesses, including nonprofits. Between July and November 2025, close to 20%, or $142 million, went to small and local businesses and nonprofits. The county manages over 3,500 active contracts worth more than $17 billion when you include multi-year agreements. Some countywide infrastructure and support service costs are centralized and allocated to departments using what are known as internal service funds or ISFs. The purpose of ISFs is to centralize certain countywide infrastructure and support service costs and allocate costs accurately to programs and services that use them, while enabling the county to maximize the leveraging of state and federal revenue. ISFs cover workers' compensation, employee benefits, general services, information technology, purchasing, public liability, and insurance. Most ISF costs appear in the services and supplies category. Exceptions include workers' compensation and employee benefits, which are included in the category of salaries and benefits. The county is dedicated to providing facilities that serve the needs of the community and strengthen the quality of life for all. Parks, live-well centers, and fire stations are examples of facilities that support our communities and staff. The county has several plans that help inform the budget. The Capital Improvement Needs Assessment Plan, also known as CINA, or just the Capital Plan, is the county's 5-year planning tool for building and improving capital facilities. The Public Works Capital Improvement Plan also captures the unincorporated infrastructure such as roads, culverts, and airports. Each year, the county reviews and updates the capital plan with consideration for the condition of existing facilities, community needs, and available funds, to name a few. Current capital plan projects for the fiscal year 2026, fiscal year 31 plan, a total of $1.1 billion, including $79 million for the coming 2026-27 fiscal year, and are developed through an annual capital planning process that overlaps with the budget process. The CINA planning timeline includes key milestones, including in August, when there is a call for projects, in October, when community outreach takes place, and in March, when projects are considered for board approval and inform the budget. CINA efforts require input from all departments to identify and prioritize infrastructure needs. In the middle, the Major Maintenance Improvement Plan, or MMIP, includes major maintenance projects that are critical to keep county facilities operational for employees and for the public. MMIP funding comes primarily through one-time resources with an average annual allocation of $59 million. This number is based on data for the last 4 years. In addition to capital and maintenance, IT projects round out the list of infrastructure projects. In November 2025, the board authorized the competitive solicitation of major IT programs to ensure competitive pricing, improve service delivery, and align with evolving technological needs. The 2028 IT outsourcing agreement is a key initiative strengthening technology alignment with the county's strategic goals while maintaining future readiness. The county is exploring state and federal grant opportunities to fund technology advancements while supporting sustainability goals. Some examples of capital projects include the new state-of-the-art public health lab at the County Operations Center. The public health lab plays a critical role in protecting the health of all San Diegans by monitoring, detecting, and responding to public health concerns. There are also capital projects in progress, including the Ramona Sheriff Station, which is scheduled to be completed in summer 2027. The new station will replace aging facilities with a modern, purpose-built sheriff station. Common projects under the MMIP include roof repairs and updates to fire and security systems. The South Bay Regional Center, located in Chula Vista, serves as a regional hub for court services and related administrative and law enforcement functions. It will undergo upgrades as part of its modernization project. In addition to the IT outsourcing and ERP systems, the Integrated Property Tax System, or IPTS, is an example of a major system that recently went live. The IPTS is a modern, cloud-based platform boosting operational efficiency for tax administration. These infrastructure needs are often long-term costs. To finance these types of costs, the county sometimes uses debt financing. Debt financing encompasses the long-term financial obligations the county will execute and provides for upfront funding by creating a future financial obligation for the county. Used responsibly, debt financing can support the costs of large long-term projects like public safety facilities, capital infrastructure, and essential public buildings. Long-term debt spreads the significant building costs over time, ensuring intergenerational equity for those who benefit throughout the years. That said, these long-term financings come at a cost. Every borrowed dollar must be repaid with interest. Debt service payments come from operating discretionary revenues, meaning GPR, the same funds that support core services and priorities now and in future years. Higher debt reduces funding for day-to-day services, and increased debt limits the county's ability to respond to emergencies, economic downturns, and to meet future needs. Issuing debt is limited by law and county policies. Borrowing is strictly constrained by the administrative code, which limits all long-term debt payments to 5% of general fund revenue. There are many other limits and restrictions on the county's debt, up to and including voter approval for some types. The county issues debt when needed, planning ahead to maintain fiscal stability and sustainability. This slide summarizes the county's current outstanding long-term debt, what we've borrowed for recent projects and pension costs, including refinancings. Here we see that current debt supports many substantial projects that fill vital roles for the region's residents and enable the best work of county employees. Debt service payments are included in the current year's budget and must be planned for through the lifetime of the debt. As debt is paid off, payment amounts decline, which is intentional and guided by debt management policies. This is known at the time of debt issuance, and any fluctuations are integrated into the 5-year financial forecast and budget development over multiple years, often decades. Debt decisions balance infrastructure needs with affordability and long-term fiscal health. They are always evaluated in the larger context to consider a variety of factors. As we look ahead to building the coming year's budget, we'll continue to consider these costs along with the current operating environment. Because our budget is so closely tied to state and federal funding and mandates, fiscal challenges and pressures at these levels of government can impact the county's planning. To help make some sense of what's happening in Sacramento and DC, I'll invite forward the county's Director of Economic Development and Government Affairs, Matthew Parr, for some insight.
Thank you, Amy. As you have heard, much of what the county does is interconnected with the state and federal government. I will share a brief update on the governor's January proposed budget and the ongoing uncertainty at the federal level. Governor Gavin Newsom released his January proposed budget on Friday, January 9th. His proposed budget accounts for $348.9 billion in total spending, which is a modest increase from last year's enacted state budget. The January proposed budget also estimates a $2.9 billion budget deficit in fiscal year 26-27, which is projected to grow significantly to $22 billion in fiscal year 27-28. In comparison, the Nonpartisan Legislative Analyst's Office estimates an even larger deficit of $17.6 billion in fiscal year 26-27, highlighting significant fiscal challenges ahead. The January proposed budget is being widely seen as a wait-and-see budget, designed to maintain funding for prior investments while avoiding any new major initiatives. The wait-and-see approach allows for time to gather more information on the impacts of recent federal actions, such as H.R. 1, and until updated estimates on state revenues becomes available. We hope to know more about the state budget and its potential impact on the county in mid-May, following the release of the governor's May revision. Another key update is the January proposed budget doesn't include any new funding for counties to offset the impacts of H.R. 1, no new funding for Proposition 36 implementation, and there is no proposed continuation of funding for the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, also known as HAP. H.R. 1, Prop 36, and HAP funding are significant priorities for the county and the county's budget, and we'll be focusing our advocacy efforts on these areas. Lastly, there continues to be a tremendous amount of ongoing uncertainty at the federal level, which adds complexity to planning and resource allocation. There is a high likelihood that a portion of the federal government will shut down beginning on January 31st if an omnibus funding bill isn't passed by Congress and signed into law by Friday. We are closely monitoring the status of the federal budget, and I will share more if there are impacts to the county. Furthermore, congressional leadership is now beginning the process to explore another reconciliation bill that is likely to focus on housing and health care, which could potentially impact the county depending on what is proposed. In addition, the threats to federal funding continue to exist, along with economic uncertainty related to policy changes and other actions occurring at the federal level. These factors underline the need for careful prioritization and strategic financial planning moving forward.
Thank you for that overview, Matthew. In light of the fiscal challenges anticipated this coming year, there is much work to be done to prepare a balanced budget. To get there, we'll draw upon and enhance the strategies used in the current year's budget, but facing the greater challenge of the current moment means we'll employ a much more robust approach. We must ensure that legally required and essential services remain funded. This may include further work to consolidate, restructure, or streamline operations by shifting focus away from discretionary activities and concentrating on those things that are core. It may even include reducing discretionary programs and service levels of mandated programs to what is minimally required. We also continue to look for opportunities to improve efficiency across departments, including service level reductions in non-critical areas and to preserve core programs. This won't mean that everything discretionary goes away, but it will mean that our teams will have to be agile and work together in new ways to ensure that if a program is being reduced or reshaped, that we can help residents find something else to take its place. We may pause discretionary spending by delaying new initiatives and discretionary requests until fiscal conditions stabilize. We also continue to look to leverage available reserves and smooth revenue fluctuations through strategies like bridge funding and employing stabilization methods to maintain continuity. We'll continue to pursue state and federal grants, partnerships, and other external funding sources. We'll practice strategic allocation and ensure general purpose revenue remains directed so that the board and the community's highest priorities are met. As noted earlier, we'll align infrastructure assets with long-term liabilities, meaning thoughtful use of debt financing to ensure generational equity, reduce risk, and ensure financial stability. When looking at our strategy to maintain fiscal stability, the economy shows mixed signals, with short-term challenges in federal and state revenue. County general purpose revenue is growing, but so are county expenditures. We continue to monitor expenditure and revenue growth to ensure ongoing balance. The recommended budget will continue to prioritize mandated programs, and it will involve some very difficult decisions. We'll also have to take a look at service levels of mandated programs and effectiveness of discretionary programs. Ongoing updates will be provided to the board. Ultimately, the goal is to align resources with operational priorities, community needs, and board priorities. State and federal budgets have a direct and significant impact on county resources. We recognize that it is not feasible to resolve all challenges at once. Large and complex issues, such as the impacts of H.R. 1, will require a phased approach to ensure thoughtful and sustainable solutions. Stabilization funding will be prioritized, and we will explore gradual increases in certain areas. This approach allows us to maintain stability while addressing critical needs over time. It's important to note that the county only appropriates funds based on available resources. Our goal is to be the best possible stewards of public funds, directing resources to programs that serve the region while operating within the resources available to us. We'll leverage all available resources to meet our objectives. This includes general purpose revenue, program-specific revenue, and any available fund balances and reserves in accordance with the board's framework, and debt financing to promote intergenerational equity. The County of San Diego is committed to advancing equity and addressing longstanding disparities that have impacted our communities. Understanding how financial resources are allocated and how budget decisions affect outcomes is critical to the county's work. Introduced in 2021, the Budget Equity Assessment Tool helps departments assess benefits and potential unintended consequences of budget requests and allocations. This strengthens equity considerations within the budget development process. The Budget Equity Questionnaire is the product of a collaboration between the Offices of Equity and Racial Justice and Financial Planning, who worked with the San Diego County residents through public feedback sessions. It's used by departments to apply equity considerations by using department-specific equity data, strengthening the use of public input and community engagement, and ensuring accountability. Embedding equity into the budget process is essential in all phases. As we kick off the budget building process for fiscal year 26-27, here are some key dates in this next phase and upcoming public involvement and input opportunities. On the heels of our financial forecasting process that has been ongoing since the fall, starting in February, all county departments will begin building their budget proposals. That will be followed by the CAO's recommended operational plan release on May 1st. It will be posted on the county website and preceded with presentations, a community open house, and a virtual community meeting. The board's public hearing period begins June 1st and concludes June 11th with publication of the revised recommended budget, which incorporates the change letter. On June 23rd, the board is scheduled to deliberate and formally adopt the fiscal year 26-27 and 27-28 operational plan. Community engagement is a core county value and is central to our budget process. County residents can connect with us through social media, track key dates, and learn about upcoming budget opportunities in a number of ways. The Engage San Diego County website has information on the budget process. Coming this spring, the Engage site will host a community survey to gather input on priorities for the budget and preferences on the county's communication of vital budget information. You can also comment on the CAO recommended op plan after it's released in May. The public can also participate through comments and attendance at a number of community and board meetings during various phases of the op plan. Our open budget portal offers budget data with drill down capability, details on the op plan, process, timeline, and links to current and past documents. I'll now turn the presentation back over to Ebony for some concluding remarks.
I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the team, to Amy, Joan, and Matthew for their informative presentation. I'm proud of the work that we do every day to serve the residents of San Diego County, and I look forward to working with all of you who are watching today and in this room and beyond to build the budget that helps to secure a safe and resilient future for all. Subject to our questions, this concludes our staff presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you all very much. I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to ask any questions they might have regarding the budget before we take a couple minutes and then do public comment as scheduled at 5 o'clock. Supervisor Jim Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, staff, for the presentation. Very informative and lots of information. So I know I've seen this many times, but I need reminding as well. On page 26, and I've heard this many times before, the property tax in lieu of vehicle license fee. So is this a formulated amount we get from the state? Because they took our vehicle license fees years ago, and now they're backfilling it? Is that it?
It is something that happened years ago, I think in the early 2000s, where the state they reduced the vehicle license fees. And so it greatly impacted counties. And so what happened, in order to mitigate the impact to counties, they instead gave us a portion of property tax. And so the base allocation to counties was based off of that lost vehicle license fees. But today, that property tax in lieu of VLF, vehicle license fees, is based on assessed valuation growth.
Does it escalate every year with the assessed valuations of property tax?
You got it.
Good.
Yeah.
And then on the next slide at 27, I don't know if you can put any of these up there as quick as I can mention them, either on 27 or 28. It's not coming up? How much are we paying for technology? Okay, thank you. 28, that's fine. On this one, okay, I get the bar charts, but the annual growth rate, is that the growth, what is the growth rate really doesn't follow the bars. So what is that growth rate? Is that population? What is it?
This growth rate, so this is, slide 28 specifically has to do with general purpose revenue.
Yes.
And so a large portion of that is the property tax that is based on assessed valuation. However, there are other sources of revenue that feed into general purpose revenue, and that might include things like a portion of sales and use tax, interest earnings. So what you're seeing on this chart is those bars show the steady growth of general purpose revenue.
Okay.
However, the growth isn't steady year to year. So you'll see that's the orange line where the growth kind of, there, it looks like a little roller coaster. That's what that is.
I don't know. Well, the way I look at that, and maybe I'm looking at your projected growth rate, the last bar, far right, looks a little bit higher than the one to the left of it, but yet there's a annual growth rate, looks like a 2.5% decrease, but that's,
so
is that projected, from a projected growth rate, or what? It doesn't?
It is a projected growth rate. It is a projected growth rate of 2.2%. And perhaps it's the way this graph is, but it is still growth. It's just lower growth from the years prior.
Okay, all right. It just looks like the annual growth rate is wild, where the other one just looks
it's a
like
roller coaster.
Just like an easy steps.
Yes.
But, okay, I just needed to be reminded on that.
Sure thing.
And then on slide 28, the capital program, I notice, has decreased quite a bit this year. For fiscal year 25-26, we only had 45.8 million. And what I'm kind of getting to is, of course, the Vista Jail. Okay, so I understand we have the major maintenance improvement plan, and we put away money for roof repairs, HVAC, fire security systems, things like that for major maintenance. But for the SENA, for these larger capital programs, the Vista Jail, we know it's going to be about another $800 million. And I know we've talked about going out to the bond market and things like that. And it's not just the Vista Jail, there's also fire stations, you mentioned the public safety center, helicopters. And I'm just wondering, I know we have the assigned reserves, and we're using them differently, but the assigned reserves, I'm just wondering why we don't have, like, the Vista Jail has some money in assigned reserves. We know that building has lasted well beyond its lifespan of what it's supposed to be 30 years, it's about 50 years now. And how come we don't put money aside for either, and maybe not even full replacement, but put money aside to these larger projects that we know we're going to have to replace someday? Why don't we have money put aside for that so we don't have to go out and bond against the entire amount? And I'm just kind of curious why we don't have any money for that Vista Jail at this point in time.
So every year we look, Amy had mentioned that we have a 5-year capital improvements needs assessment, and we look at it every year, and funding priorities are set by that. And so this 5-year capital program is presented to the board, and certainly it would be at the board's discretion to set aside amounts for future capital projects.
Well, I don't know. I think that's just prudent, budget behavior is to, we know this is coming, it's years out, but we should, maybe you don't put 100%, but we do put dollars towards these types of projects that we know we're going to get hit with. And instead of having to go to the bond market for the whole amount, maybe a part of it or something like that. But I would like to see us, I guess, have a little more, particularly since we've been going after some of these assigned reserves, that we have enough money set aside, or at least some money, so that when these larger projects come up, we don't have to finance the whole thing. I would like to see that in the future budget or budget coming forward. And for those longer term projects, we know they're going to have, this building someday is going to have to be replaced. But the jails and things like that, we know have more potential for being replaced. So I guess I would like to see us putting more money aside for towards the assigned reserves, towards these projects that we know are coming down the pipeline in the near future. So that would be my request, that we look at that possibility of adding that into the budget program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Chair Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to staff for all of your work and great presentation. Can we go to slide 44? Great. So this slide tells us the strategies for balancing our budget, but it doesn't really tell us how we're going to protect what we have or prioritize. So I think that before we talk about balancing the budget, we need to talk about how are we going to prioritize programs and services. So my question is, how are we going to ensure that our priorities are included? And is the expectation that you all staff defines what core services and priority communities are before deciding whether to reduce services, consolidate, or suspend requests? Or does that happen afterward?
So core services and programs are, for the county team, that we start with a comprehensive program inventory, and we actually look to see for each program if there are federal, state mandates, and then also if it's board directed or if there's a board document like the county charter that might direct it. So in terms of what is core, that kind of underpins everything. And then with respect to your comment about prioritizing before we move forward with one of these strategies that are on this slide. So that prioritization happens, I would say, year-round, and it starts to really formalize and take shape during the 5-year financial forecast, where we hear from departments and they share with us what they think will help them to deliver services in the best possible way. And they give us that input based on the feedback that they hear from their customers year-round. As well, we all kind of center around the county's strategic plan as something that we can pin to, right? So in terms of prioritization and what counts as core, we do look at what is legally required of us based on the regulatory environment. We use, we look to what the county priorities are based on what's expressed in the strategic plan, and then also direction that the board gives us throughout the year too.
No, that's helpful. And of course, we have our core mandated programs, so that's clear. But what's also clear is that we have communities that have been seriously and severely underinvested for a long time, especially in my district. And I just want to make sure that we consider the needs of the district before we go ahead and follow the guidelines of a strategic plan, for example. The strategic plan is important. I respect what's been done in the past. But I think it's important that as we move forward, we consider priority communities. I think that's incredibly important, especially communities that have been disproportionately underfunded, and that we include those as we move forward. I think that's incredibly important. I think that having that clarity before we move forward and come back with the CAO's recommended budget, we have to make sure that, you know, priorities, even though they're not mandated, that are important to our communities. For example, housing. Housing is not mandated, but it is an area that will help us save funding and resources down the line, right? So for example, the shallow rent subsidy program or the homeless prevention grant program, or you know, legal assistance. We've talked about that in the past. I think that's important to also ensure that we include moving forward. Thank you.
Supervisor Vice Chair Montgomery.
Thank you so much. Really do appreciate the presentation and you all laying out the process, where revenues are coming from, you know, all the things. I just have a couple of questions, and they stem from slide 17 and slide 36. So just briefly on slide 17, I do see in the box for Health and Human Services, the Mental Health Services Act, personal income tax. So my understanding is, based on Prop 1 and now BHSA, there's sort of a shift. And I don't know if this question goes to Joan, Amy, or maybe Nadia. But I wanted to see I wanted to ask about sort of the interplay between those funding sources. Like, what happens to MHSA now? Is it the same? Is it completely different? Are the two not related at all to MHSA and BHSA? We know we just went through some, we had to drop some contracts based on the changing of how the way that this funding goes out into community. And so I just wanted to see how that plays into this key program revenues, if at all.
So if I may, through the chair, thank you for the question. It is a very good question, and there's a lot going on around the BHSA sort of implementation that'll happen on July 1st. So to be clear, this is Prop 1. It has changed the requirements associated with what was formerly known as MHSA, and now it's BHSA. So we have been planning over the last 6 months or so, and as a result, there's going to be programs that have to be eliminated due to a number of reasons. They're either no longer eligible because there's new evidence-based practices and new requirements under BHSA, so they no longer meet those requirements. Because the second reason is because prevention funding is shifting to the state. So it used to come to counties, and it will no longer come to counties. It will be going to the state Department of, California Department of Public Health. And we're not fully sure what that's going to look like yet. And then
so real quick, Nadia, yeah. So that's probably why it's not listed in this box. Is that why BHSA is not listed in this box? Because it is going to the state and no longer to the county? Okay.
Yeah, and then one more just sort of specific piece. So, you know, what we're looking at for some programs, if possible, we're looking at redesigning programs to make them Medi-Cal reimbursable, but that only applies to some programs. There are other programs that are prevention funded, really, that they're not sustainable. They just don't meet any requirements, and within these sort of new components, if you will, under BHSA, they just don't meet any of the sort of mandates. And so, you know, many of them are very wonderful programs and have, you know, sort of provided the community with a wonderful resource, but they're not sustainable in terms of at least our core services or mandated services as the local mental health plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted some clarification there. And then for slide 36, with regard to the retirement costs and us seeing a little bit of a reduction as far as what is coming out of our budget, Amy, I think you mentioned that there is already a plan for the use of savings. We may get into that a little bit later, but I'd like to know more details about what that plan is.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Great question. So the financial planning team at the county, as part of their long-term financial planning projections, continuously updates on expected impacts to our retirement rate of return as we receive information from SD Sarah. We know over the last couple of years the rate of return came in more favorable than we had initially budgeted. And so when we actually started the 5-year financial planning process for this upcoming period back in August, the team had tried to take that into consideration in factoring in what we expected our upcoming fiscal year 26-27 retirement contribution needs to be. And then we had the actual study from SD Sarah, the actuarial study that got published a couple of months ago. And we took that information, it was actually pretty close to what we had been projecting. So any budget constraints that we are working with now already take into consideration that fortunately we'll be paying a little bit less for retirement rates going forward.
Okay, so you're saying we
In a
got
very
it
long,
already.
roundabout way.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I still would like to kind of see a bit more of how that is based on the proposed budget,
In
how that is
dollars, like
going
how-
into
yes, we
with
can share
in
that.
this specific category.
Okay.
But thank you very much. Appreciate
And
it.
Just in response to that, Vice Chair, through the chair, for members of the public who may be interested in hearing more about that, there will be a staff presentation when we come forward next month with the retirement contribution rates adoption, and that would be a perfect time for us to do a deeper dive there to share how the county looks at long-term financial planning in the context of what's happening out of SD Sarah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you all very much. I'm very much looking forward to hearing all the public input. We set a time certain for this for 5 o'clock to maximize the ability of the public to come after work. So we will reconvene in about 15 minutes. Thank you all.
And as a reminder for those that would like to speak at 5 p.m., please ensure that you have registered to speak before that 5 o'clock time starts. You can check in with the deputy clerk at the front of the chamber if you need help signing up. Thank you.
Okay, if folks can please take your seat. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for being here this evening. I'm really excited to see so many faces, many of them new faces here to participate in our county budget process. This year, we're trying something a little bit different. As I mentioned before the county staff's budget presentation, in the past, our community has often been asked to share their feedback and thoughts on budget priorities after most of the key budget decisions had been made, and that was generally during the budget process, the formal budget and process in June in reaction to the CAO's draft budget. But by the time those June hearings happened, the cake was already baked and sometimes even already frosted. So that is not real participation, and have been over the last 5 years really committed to deepening, expanding budget transparency and accountability and participation and how our county invests our resources to best serve our community. So tonight is about trying to get community input much, much earlier before the budget's locked in. And that budget process, the budget build process, actually begins in the fall as the team makes budget projections about the next fiscal year. So we're now in the point of the CAO getting a lot of input, getting input from departments, getting input from board offices, getting community input to put together a draft budget to present to us at the end of May, which will then be debated and adopted in June. So if we're going to have a real process where community needs and community voices are taken into account on the front end, and instead of just reacting to something on the back end, we really got to kind of get in the practice of having these conversations in January so that this is really centered for the CAO as the budget's put together, and not just the CAO, but also for our board members, so that we're really kind of clear on what community priorities are and can be a real advocate for those as the budget is put together by the CAO. So our hope tonight is to hear major priorities and lived experiences, what's working, what's not, and where you think we need to be focusing. We're also trying to have this at a different time. This is 5 o'clock with the hope that more people can attend. There's no perfect time, obviously, but helpful to have a meeting towards the end of the workday so more people could hopefully be here. So, I'm really excited to hear everyone's feedback, but I do also just really want to be honest and transparent that this is clear, that this is clearly a step forward, but it is absolutely, definitely a small step and is definitely, in my view, not sufficient. I think we have a huge amount more work to do to make our county budget more transparent and more accountable to the public. So I think this is an important first step, but it is a step, and there's a lot more work we have to do to make sure that our budget is accountable and that it, as a moral document, really reflects what the government is working for. So my commitment is to continue pushing for better budget engagement, budget transparency, budget accountability, and this is one step along this process. So with that, I think I'm just excited to hear from everyone. And Andrew, please call the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 73 requests to speak, 57 in person, and 16 requesting to speak by phone. I also note for the record that we received 169 e-comments, 139 of those in support, 3 in opposition, and 8 neutral comments. For any individuals that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll have 1 minute to address the board since there are 10 or more speakers on this item. We'll ask you to begin by stating your name for the audio record. I'll be calling you groups of 3, so I'll ask you to please listen for your name. I'd like to invite forward the first 3 individuals, Noah Yiyik, Eddie Mayer, and Kaylee Levitt. And let me just remind folks to please
abide by our board's rules of procedure while you're here, which partly means many things, and not disrupting the proceedings is one of them. That means no clapping, no cheering. If you want to show support, you can do it. You can twinkle and show nonverbal support like a Quaker. Thank you.
Good evening, supervisors. My name is Noah Yiyik. I am a resident of District 3, a researcher at the Center on Policy Initiatives, and a convener of the Community Budget Alliance. We are living through a nightmare. Families are losing access to health care, people are skipping meals, and rents keep rising while wages don't. And across this country, people are being terrorized and killed by the federal administration. Our budget is a moral document, so the question before us is simple. What does our county stand for when people are hurting this deeply? We need a county that is willing to be bold, one that chooses care over criminalization and prevention over crisis. We need you to include funding for the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement to defend workers' rights, an emergency fund for workers, families, and small businesses impacted by ICE raids, mediators to assist with eviction diversion, a Department of Youth Development, the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, emergency rental relief, and affordable food for all. Lead with courage, invest in people, and make San Diego a place where everyone can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Kaylee Levitt with Jewish Family Service. Thank you for the county's continued investment in programs that support the most vulnerable in our community. Your commitment truly does matter, but with cuts and budget restraints at every level of government, more county residents will now be turning to you and also to nonprofits like JFS. This includes a 60-year-old retired teacher trying to stretch a fixed income, to a newer refugee from Afghanistan with uncertain status, to a 30-year-old single mom working multiple jobs and still struggling to make ends meet. They're not asking for luxuries. All they're asking for is food, access to medical care, and a safe place to live. These are the fundamentals of stability and dignity. As you make these difficult budget decisions, we urge you to continue pushing and prioritizing these essential services. JFS is part of the Basic Needs Coalition, and you'll be hearing later today from other colleagues in that division. And we're asking for the basic needs of programs that prevent avoidable emergencies and higher costs later. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers: Erica Castillo, Karina Pugh, and Esme Quintero-Cubillan.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Meyer. I'm a senior policy advocate for the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties. We are living in extraordinary and difficult times. The current administration has weaponized the federal government, cutting vital resources to fund its deportation force. As federal support is stripped away, the responsibility has shifted to local governments to fill gaps in care and protect our communities. San Diego County has a moral obligation to step up where the federal government has failed. We strongly support continued funding for critical county programs facing cuts and growing demand, including healthcare, housing, nutrition, other essential services our communities rely on. One of our top priorities is strong funding for the Immigrant Legal Defense Program. Demand for immigrant legal services continue to rise as residents face deportation, detention, and no one should have to navigate the most complex legal systems in our county alone. The ILDP ensures immigrants in detention have access to legal representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, supervisors. My name is Erica Castillo. I'm a resident of District 4, a small business owner, advocacy co-chair for Business for Good, and I'm on the Community Budget Alliance Coalition. Escalating federal enforcement and policies are terrorizing our communities, stripping workers of their livelihoods, and putting our local economy at risk. When our neighbors are hiding, our small businesses and families suffer. In light of this, please establish an emergency relief fund for workers, families, and small businesses devastated by federal ICE raids, cuts, and policies. Additionally, I urge you to fully fund OLSE to defend workers' rights, the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, and emergency rental relief, mediators for eviction diversion, and consistent access to healthy food for all. Our community's stability depends on your courage, specifically in this budget cycle. Thank you so much for your time for tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Karina Pugh. My pronouns are she, her, and on behalf of the San Diego LGBT Community Center and the San Diego LGBTQIA+ Regional Table, I am asking for full funding of the innovative adult housing services and enhanced housing services. We are grateful that last year you all voted to fund this program through June 2026. Now we are back to advocate on behalf of LGBTQ affirming housing, adult housing again. These programs provide critical wraparound services to vulnerable populations, including LGBTQ+ folks who are dealing with or at risk of homelessness. These services are immensely successful and prevent folks from falling into homelessness, providing support to allow people to remain in their stable, permanent housing. This is an effective way to keep our community housed, saving the county money because it is cheaper to keep folks in their homes than rehousing them once they have already fallen into homelessness. At a time where the federal government, is cutting funding to many important services, our county must align itself as a national leader by maintaining funding to important services like these housing contracts, investing in our most vulnerable populations. Additionally, please support the request from our partners at the Community Budget Alliance, calling for similar investments into our most vulnerable.
Thank you. Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Warren Lang, Jesus Martin Gallegos Munoz, and Robert Olson.
Sure. Howdy, supervisors. I'm Isma Quintero Cubian. I use they, she pronouns, and I'm the Outreach and Organizing Coordinator for San Diego Pride. And I'm also a resident of District 4, so howdy, Monica. With that, I'm speaking in support of fully funding the adult housing services and enhanced housing services. Like the previous speaker before me mentioned, these services are critical to maintaining our community. And personally, in my own life, I've personally taken in folks to stay in my home who are losing out on their own housing, and I do not want to see this continue to other people in our community. These wraparound services are so needed in a time when our federal government has rejected the notion that the best good is the public good. And I'd also like to voice support for the ILDP ask and the remainder of the slate of the Community Budget Alliance's priorities. Thank you so much, and please support ILDP and the wraparound services.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Warren Lang. I might be out of order here. This is my first time. Anyway, my main concern is to talk about the transfer tax and the sales tax increase that has been talked about. The main reason is because this proposed tax increase from 0.1% to 6% is the most significant expense in selling a house. And that expense occurs whether you have profits in the house or not. Someone buys a house here, real estate levels are flat for 3 years, you sell the house, how do you pay for the tax? There's no money in the house. So I request that you guys push back on the transfer tax and also the sales tax increase. This is supposed to be affordability. We want affordability, not more taxes, which makes things unaffordable. Thank you.
Before you move to the next speaker, let me just note, I let you continue because the budget is a very broad topic, and revenue is relevant to budget, but noting that that was not part of the staff presentation, and there is an item on the agenda tomorrow that specifically addresses that issue brought by my colleague, Supervisor Desmond. So the appropriate time for a comment regarding another item on the agenda is when that item comes up. So again, I just clarifying, I did allow this comment to continue because the budget's such a big topic and where the money comes from is relevant, but we're not really considering that right now. That is a topic for consideration tomorrow on an agenda item tomorrow. So
okay,
thank you.
I'd like to address I have some plans for the homeless. It's a dome home. It's 452 square feet, and it's $3,500 to build one. I believe it would be very good for the homeless population. I've got some pictures that I've passed out to them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have the pictures you provided for the record. Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers: Joanne Franciscus, Brock Cavett, and Virginia Exner-Cole.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesus Martin Gallegos Munoz. I'm a resident of District 1, a member of the Chicano Federation, and a part of the Community Budget Alliance. In this moment of federal disinvestment and crisis, we need our local leaders to put people first. Keeping people housed must be a priority as we need our local leaders to put people first. We need you to restore and expand the tenant legal services contract, which provides eviction prevention services and is a critical tool for keeping San Diegans housed. The ongoing detention and deportation of our community members have left hundreds of individuals unable to pay for rent and vulnerable to homelessness. Undocumented folks face greater challenges in accessing legal representation and aid in eviction proceedings, a problem that can be addressed by funding the right institutions to represent undocumented folks. That's why we urge you to restore and expand the tenant legal services contract and allocate $500,000 for housing legal services for undocumented individuals. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Joanne Franciscus. I'm the CEO of the Legal Aid Society of San Diego. We've been providing free legal services to low-income residents throughout San Diego County for over 100 years. On behalf of LASSD, I support the county protecting essential services from federal disinvestment as a priority in this year's budget. The people that we serve depend on us to provide access to justice and access to vital services, including healthcare, tenant legal services, SSI advocacy, and CalFresh, just to name a few. These services, all of which are being impacted by federal cuts, are not only life-changing for the individuals and families served, but also benefit the government and the taxpayers, yielding a social return on investment of more than $5 for every dollar invested. Without county intervention, federal funding cuts will disproportionately fall on those who are most vulnerable. County residents will experience poorer health outcomes, homelessness, food insecurity, and financial instability. Investing in essential services like ours is the morally and fiscally responsible decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Supervisors. My name is Brock Cavett. My pronouns are he, him, and on behalf of San Diego Pride and the San Diego LGBTQIA+ regional table, I support fully funding innovative adult housing services and enhanced housing services. I'm a new San Diego resident in District 3, having just moved here 2 weeks ago from the Inland Empire. The biggest worry my partner and I had when relocating to San Diego was affordability, and we are a 2-income household. For many vulnerable populations, including LGBTQ folks who are at higher risk of experiencing homelessness, these contracts are vital to providing wraparound services to ensure our community is able to remain in stable, permanent housing. As you've heard, we continue to see cuts to essential services from our federal government and critical resources for queer and trans folks targeted. San Diego County needs to continue to prioritize funding that has proven successful in supporting our most vulnerable community members. Thank you for your past investment in these contracts and for your time this evening. I hope you consider to fully fund these services moving forward.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite 3 more speakers: Carol McBierney, Tristan Beery, and Liliana Soriano.
Hi, good evening. My name is Virginia Exner-Cole. I'm a proud retired county employee and a boysenberry farmer in Ramona. This evening I'm here on behalf of the Ramona Grange and the small farmers across the county who are working every day to keep agriculture viable in this region. San Diego County has made it clear through the Sustainable Agriculture Land Conservation, SALC 1 and 2, that protecting farmland alone is not enough. Farmers must also be economically sustainable if agriculture is going to survive here. One of the most effective ways to bridge that economic gap is value-added production. So this is why the Ramona Grange, a longstanding nonprofit farmers organization, has initiated the development of a community commissary kitchen made possible through a launch pad from Supervisor Joel Anderson. It would support farmers and be open to all residents of the county with priority access to farmers. It will provide a shared permitted space where producers can legally and affordably transform their products into value-added products. This is currently no accessible farmer-focused commissary kitchen serving North County's agricultural region at this time, and without infrastructure like this, many small farms will fail, not because they lack land or skill, but because they have no pathway to profitability. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Working at Legal Aid Society of San Diego for almost 10 years, I have seen the tremendous impact that funding legal services geared towards disability benefits, healthcare, and housing have made in our community.
Can you please state your name?
Carol McBurney.
Thank you.
My apologies. With the changes to federal and state funding, county funding for disability-related legal services like Social Security disability benefit advocacy is now more important than ever. The funding that the county provides to fund Social Security benefits for legal services for disabled children and adults returns the benefits to this community threefold. First, by ensuring that some of the most vulnerable and disabled members of our community have the resources to stay housed and off our streets. Second, by connecting them with mental health services and medical services. And third, by bringing millions of dollars of federal Social Security funding into our local San Diego economy annually. Legal Aid Society of San Diego supports the funding of behavioral health services, including supportive legal services in San Diego County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Tristan Beery, and I'm a resident of District 4 and the youth organizer over at YouthWill, and I am a part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. We are currently in a time where Trump troopers are actively terrorizing our communities and holding our local governments hostage while also tearing our families apart. That's why we need local leaders such as yourselves to step up and prioritize protecting all San Diegans by acting boldly. We need you to include funding for an emergency fund for workers, families, and small businesses affected by ICE raids, along with legal defense for immigrants who might struggle with understanding the system. As I and many others will continue to mention, these domestic terrorists known as ICE and CBP are prowling our streets, and we need to protect our people in every way that we can. We need to provide those who choose San Diego as their new home with financial and legal protections, both in the courtrooms and outside. More and more of us are being affected every day by the ongoings, and San Diego wouldn't be the first county to implement these emergency funds for families, workers, and small businesses, and we certainly shouldn't be the last.
Thank you. I'd like to call 3 additional speakers. Alicia Morrison, allegedly Audra, and Lori Johnson. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Hi, Board of Supervisors. My name is Liliana Soriano. I am a resident of District 4 and the Director of Policy at YouthWill, who is a community-based organization supporting young people 25 and under. We're also part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. The federal administration is terrorizing our communities and holding our local governments hostage. We need our local leaders to put people first and act boldly. We need you to include funding for the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, an emergency fund for workers, families, and small businesses affected by ICE raids, a Department of Youth Development, and other things. Community members are at risk of disappearing if lifelines, which are programs like the ones I mentioned above, that means being displaced of their homes or literally murdered on the street. Protect our communities by investing in their needs. The budget decisions you make do matter. In a time of growing needs and shrinking federal support, we need the county to step up. Lead with care, invest in people, and make San Diego a place where everyone can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Alicia Morrison. Legislative bodies of local government agencies exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. I reside in the unincorporated community of Lincoln Acres, and I support full funding for the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. In the last 2 months, Lincoln Acres had 2 incidents of assault and rape. Having an increase in patrol will provide the community with a sense of safety, reduce victimization, and improve overall the quality of life. Public safety is a priority where I live in Lincoln Acres. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Lori Johnson. I live in District 3, and I'm a member of the ACLU SDIC. So much is going wrong in our country right now. Vulnerable people are more at risk than ever, just trying to survive. That makes the responsibility you carry as county supervisors so important. You decide how to ensure that our neighbors have access to housing, health care, food, and essential services. I'm here today to urge you to allocate $7 million to continue funding that immigrant legal defense program. I've seen firsthand how critical ILDP funding is. These funds have helped immigrant families fight to stay together. As we know, many have been sent to detention waiting deportation. Legal services have been crucial, helping them fight for their families and find their way through a confusing and overwhelming legal system. For the immigrant families in San Diego County, the nightmare is not over. The need for these services is ongoing and urgent. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Marcus Fisher, Cheryl Wagner, and Doug Goad. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Sadly, these people actually think that you care about them, and you don't, because there are children that are being murdered and raped in the county by people that you want to protect over citizens of this nation, and you care more about people that don't live here. You're trafficking children through HHS and all of your foster care and all the things you do. You're exploiting the homeless instead of actually helping them get off the street and into housing, because it's a business for you guys. It has nothing to do with making people's lives better, because you don't even care about animals. You let them be abused and refuse to mitigate the issues while claiming that it's not happening when it is. And you guys get obvious evidence all the time of the trafficking that's going on, and yet you guys spend more money to throw at ripping families apart. But if you're an illegal alien, you don't want to rip those families apart. And it's just disturbing to see how much money you get. Even the fact that you spent $1 billion on AI last year, when AI hallucinates. Okay, it's not even something that we should be spending money like that on. There are people that are suffering that deserve it more.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Fisher. I am a resident of District 3, and I'm also a community advocate for the past 20 years and a case manager with Family Health Centers. I have actually been helping many of your residents with the funding that you have provided to our county with rental assistance for many of the vulnerable communities within many of the districts. The residents serves are seniors on fixed income, low-income families, LGBTQ community members who are already housed, already working, and already contributing to this community. What placed them at risk were short-term crises, medical emergencies, hospitalizations, sudden job loss, including violence and discrimination within the districts. With limited strategic and rental assistance, often just for 1 month, we prevent eviction, preserve long-term housing stability, and supported a rapid return to self-sufficiency. This is not a long-term subsidy, it's mostly short-term interventions with lasting results. From a fiscal standpoint, preventing homelessness costs far less than responding to eviction later on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Wagner. I'm the president of Ramona Trails Association in beautiful Ramona, California. We did receive funding in 2023 for the Santa Maria Creek Greenway to get things started, the implementation plan, the outreach, and so forth. I'm asking you to continue funding that project. The community is very, very supportive. We have broad community support for it. Additionally, there is the Ramona Grasslands extension on the list as well. And that ties in with the Santa Maria Creek Greenway very nicely. The Ramona Grasslands is loved and sometimes overloved because there's one staging area where everybody goes on a Sunday. And so having additional funding for additional trail there will bode well as adding to the Santa Maria Creek Greenway funding and focusing on the town center, but also the lower hanging fruit, which is agency-owned land that is already there on the ground. So thank you for the previous support and the continued.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Jacob Duarte, Elena Franco, and Lori Lipsman.
Good evening, supervisors. My name is Doug Goad. I'm the chair of the County Parks Advisory Committee. I've had 20 years experience with the Parks Advisory Committee, and I have 10 years as chair. And I'm here to ask you not to cut the Parks and Rec budget this year. I think it's important to keep families together and keeps kids feeling happy and loved and taken care of. Thank you for all that you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, supervisors. I'm Jacob Duarte, an organizer representing the San Diego LGBT Community Center, and I'm here to urge you to fully fund LGBTQ affirming housing services. Let me be direct. Prevention works, innovative adult housing, and enhanced housing services proves it. Every person these services keep housed is someone who doesn't cycle through our emergency rooms, our jails, or our crisis systems. That's not just compassion, it's fiscal responsibility. But here's what the numbers don't capture: the dignity of stability. For the LGBTQ plus individuals who've already faced rejection and trauma and discrimination, losing housing isn't just about losing four walls, it's about losing safety itself. These wraparound services don't just prevent homelessness, they interrupt a crisis before it begins. Right now, while federal support vanishes, San Diego has a choice. We can either lead by protecting our most vulnerable, or we can step back and watch proven programs collapse. These contracts exceed their goals because they work. They keep people, the people they serve aren't statistics, they're our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, all. My name is Elena Franco, and I am currently the chair for Mount Hope Neighborhood Group and the recently created Community Recreation Group, which exists without a recreation center. And I'm here to ask that you guys please include us into this budget, because we have youth, seniors, everybody in our community that does not have a recreation center or anywhere viable to go and do anything positive. We walk between two cemeteries every day and more or less experience death on a daily. We need a recreation center to help better our community, our youth, and give them resources and not have to travel outside of the community to have any type of normal existence. We need equity, social equity, and I'm asked that you guys please include us and help us in this process. We just approved the final design of the rec center last week, and I would implore all of you to please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers: Somaya Fazel, Dante Golden, and Ansermio Estrada.
Hello, my name is Lori Lipsman, pronouns she, her, and I'm a resident of North Park. Detention does not deter crime or reform people. It drains public resources without making us safer. At a time when more people are struggling just to survive, increased incarceration is predictable, and continuing to fund detention as a primary response is unsustainable. Real public safety comes from prevention. I urge you to reduce funding for detention facilities and redirect those funds to housing, healthcare, treatment, and community support. The investments that actually keep people out of the system. I just gave you some money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Somaya Fazal. I'm a resident of District 4, and I'm an outreach and organizer intern with YouthWell, a nonprofit organization that works for youth. I'm here today because when we support young people, we build a safer and a healthier community for everyone. Youth needs opportunity, guidance, mental health support, and safe space, not a system that punish and traumatize them. That's why I'm here asking you to invest at Department of Youth Development by approving the one-time $250 feasibility study. This study is an important first step to understand what service DYD should provide, what resources are needed, and how to build a long-term solution that is fair and sustainable. We don't need the temporary effects. We need prevention support and real change. Please invest in youth development, non-detention. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers: Robert Sanders, Max Desposti, and Rachel Lozano Castro.
Good afternoon, Chair and Supervisors. My name is Dante Golden, Senior Director of Policy at the San Diego Housing Federation. I'm here on behalf of the Basic Needs Coalition, a cross-sector group of advocates and organizations working to ensure every San Diegan has their basic needs met, including housing, supportive services, food access, and overall well-being, supported by strong public policy and sustained investment. As staff presented earlier, our communities are facing a dangerous convergence of federal and state cuts. It's in this context that we urge the county to step up. We're supportive of efforts to reopen county reserves to address these challenges, and want to thank leadership of the board for continuing that conversation and for working towards protecting the community from impending federal cuts. Specifically, we are calling on the county to backfill lost federal funding, invest in prevention and basic needs like food access, tenant protections, sustain affordable housing and preservation efforts, and ensure that staffing capacity needed to eligible residents actually receive the benefits they're entitled to. Meeting basic needs is how we prevent crises from continuing and ongoing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is AJ Estrada. I'm a proud resident of District 1. I also have the honor of serving as the political director for the San Diego Building and Construction Trades Council. I'm here with my brothers, sisters, and siblings who make up the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. Our federal government has stripped funding away from our public schools and our food banks. They have stolen funding meant for critical infrastructure. They have sent armed masked men into our communities to rip families apart in a deliberate campaign to terrorize and destabilize working class communities. The same families, our communities, need this county to fight back. We need this board to invest in our families. We need the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement funded to defend workers against rampant wage theft. We need emergency funding for workers, families, and small businesses affected by ICE. We need mediators to assist tenants with eviction diversion and fully funded immigrant legal defense program so that no child has to navigate our cumbersome and inhumane immigration system alone. We must redefine how we talk about and fund public safety so that every San Diegan has the security of a roof over their head, food on their table, and the dignity of access to health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yes, good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Robert Sanders. I reside in District 4. I'm the political community coordinator with SEIU Local 221. I'm part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. I'm here because federal failures are hitting our communities every day. Families are living in fear, workers are being exploited, and local government are being forced to carry the load. In moments like this, people need their county leadership to step up. This is personal for me. As a union organizer, I've worked with workers who are afraid to report wage theft or unsafe conditions because retaliation costs them their jobs or their housing. That's why funding the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement matters. Rights matters if they're enforced. I also see how one crisis, an ICE raid, or a rent increase can push a family to the brink. Emergency funds, rental relief, eviction diversion, and immigrant legal defense can be the difference between stability and displacement. Budgets are moral documents. These choices tell people whether they matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, County Supervisors. My name is Max Disposti, and I am a resident of District 5. Hi, Desmond. I'm also a city commissioner. I'm here representing the North County LGBT Resource Center, but also the LGBTQI regional table that serves the entire region of San Diego. I'm here in support of the LGBTQ adult housing and affirming services that last year alone, thanks to your support, has prevented thousands of individuals from falling into homelessness and poverty. This is an effective way to keep our community housed, saving the county money because it's cheaper to keep folks in their homes than rehousing them once they have already fallen into homelessness. At a time where the federal government is scapegoating immigrants and LGBT people with hateful narrative and actions against our own residents, we're hoping the county continues to prioritize human dignity, respect, and safety for our working class people by preventing poverty and homelessness at its start. Please support the LGBTQ adult housing and affirming services, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to call 3 additional speakers. Daniela Alvarado, Dean Sheik, and Roberto Velasquez.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Rachel Lozano Castro, and I'm a resident of District 4 and also serve as the Director of Strategic Partnerships at PANA, Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to first support all of the priorities of the Community Budgeting Alliance. I'm also here to speak about the Global Village Refugee and Immigrant Cultural Hub and asked for the board to consider allocating capital funding to Global Village as well as funding the Innovative Housing Trust Fund. The Global Village is a multi-use project built on 2.2 acres of land in Mid-City. It will offer 135 large family units, all deeply affordable. This project also includes 50,000 square feet of commercial, integrating a health center, childcare, and a marketplace, and a nonprofit hub that will serve over 1,500 people daily. It features a community plaza designed for regional resilience during times of crisis. This is more than housing, and it's more urgent than ever. It's an investment in health and well-being, belonging, and economic opportunity in a historically underserved Mid-City. This project's aligned with the county's priorities around equity, social determinants of health, and community infrastructure. And the project maximizes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Alvarado. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at PANA, and I'm here today to respectfully request your support for an allocation of capital funding from various sources to bring the long-held community dream of the Global Village, Refugee and Immigrant Cultural Hub, and Housing Campus to life. Global Village will be a community-owned and developed regional resilience center. This project will be centrally located, enabling us to build and locate essential services. It will include healthcare, affordable housing, disaster services, and emergency response, proactively enhancing community resilience. The county is facing significant challenges in responding to housing and service needs, compounded by a persistent gap in community-led initiatives. Our coordinated efforts aim to deliver a comprehensive response to the regional challenges we're all facing. The communities most at risk for these disasters, economic closures we can all see all around us, and public health crisis often lack the access to adequate resources. These challenges are particularly prevalent amongst...
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Dean Sheikh. Despite significant county investment in housing and service, a critical gap remains: the absence of community-led infrastructure capable of delivering coordinated, holistic response to regional challenges with systems that are often fragmented and reactive. Communities most vulnerable to climate disaster, economics, and public health crises are also those that have experienced long-standing disinvestment barriers to access. Making investments in Global Village Hub by PANA matter of equity. The project represents a deliberate shift from traditional self-provided model to community stewardship model by placing capital resource and governance authority in the hands of community-based organizations, fostering self-determination, trust, long-term resilience with the land equity. Thank you.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Michael Bagnas, Janika Faulkner, and Ramla Sahid. If I've called your name, please come on down.
Hello, I'm Roberto Velasquez, President and CEO of Southern Caregiver Resource Center, and on behalf of the 490,000 family caregivers in our county, I ask that the mental health needs of adult and older adult family caregivers be included in our county's budget. We need to acknowledge the growing needs of older adults and people with disabilities and their caregivers, who are often older adults with disabilities themselves. Our older adults are the fastest growing group of people experiencing poverty and disabilities, and they rely on their family. And the family caregivers experience significant impairments and distress, severe depression, adjustment disorder, general anxiety. Programs like our caregiver support program have been cut due to Prop 1, and even though it only costs about $14 per person per year. And I urge the county supervisors to advocate, prioritize, and protect the mental health needs of our family caregivers by finding funding to support programs like our Caregiver Support Services program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Michael Bagner. Some of you saw me here last month when the Crime Victims Response Team budget was entirely cut by the county. The recent double homicide in Grantville, many people commented on Facebook about the poor 3 children under 2. There were 9 children in total that are involved and affected with the trauma, along with the relatives. Normally, a person like Bevelyn would go out and help that family. She's been through it herself. There's no one to help these families anymore. I ask you to prioritize reintroduction of convicted felons. Put that at a lower priority. Put crime victims first, so someone can walk those families through the chaos, the shock, and the ongoing grief they will endure for years. Please, reprioritize if there's any funds left for them.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Halka Memiyu Temenyewe. My name is Janika, and I'm a resident of District 4, a member of Alliance San Diego and the Community Budget Alliance. Keeping people housed must be a priority as we continue to see the federal government targeting working class families and programs that help them survive. We must act before eviction happens. This matters to me because my sister is currently facing an eviction after being laid off of her job. She was only 1 month behind on rent and offered to pay half of the rent. Instead, they tripled it, gave her 2 weeks, and then they filed for an eviction. We urge you to invest $3 million into creating an eviction diversion program that provides mediation between tenants and landlords to resolve issues early and keep people facing financial hardships housed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Vanessa Melendez, Ilyas Ben Batul, and Belen Hernandez. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the board. My name is Ramla Sahid, and I'm the Executive Director of PANA. I'm here today to respectfully request your support for an allocation of capital funding from various sources. We have to figure it out. To bring online a long-held community dream, the Global Village Refugee and Immigrant Cultural Hub and Housing Campus. As we navigate the challenges ahead, we need to build sustainable community infrastructure. We need to meet the moment. This requires vision and a strong community-county partnership. We are seeking funding specifically for the capital cost to establish this permanent asset. The land has been acquired without debt. The pre-development is nearing completion, and we're requesting funds towards the gap development. We urge the board to support the Global Village project from various sources. Additionally, we ask you to support Community Budget Alliance priorities, fund the Innovative Housing Trust Fund, and dedicate a portion of that funding to the Global Village. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Ilyas Ben Batul, a member of the Community Budget Alliance, as well as CARE San Diego. During these volatile times for the most vulnerable communities, we need you, our leaders, and public servants to step up and take strong action in support of the people who need it most. We need you to include funding for the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, an emergency fund for workers, families, and businesses affected by ICE raids, a Department of Youth Development, assistance for tenants facing eviction, the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, funding for the Refugee and Immigrant Cultural Hub, Global Village, and consistent access to safe, affordable, and healthy food for all. It is time that we as a county use the budget to support and represent the most underrepresented communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Vanessa Melendez, and I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator for the Filipino Workers Center with offices in Vista and Chula Vista. We work for equitable worker rights and fight wage theft cases, as well as equal treatment for all. We're also with CBA, the Community Budget Alliance, like everybody else. I want to uplift and support everything my colleague has just brought up, but I'm going to reflect upon just a couple of particulars. One, I'm requesting an emergency relief fund for workers, families, and small businesses devastated by the federal ICE raids, cuts, and policies. Oh, I'm nervous. Additionally, I urge you to fully fund OLCE to defend workers' rights, because employers are emboldened right now by this administration, and they are breaking the law more. The Immigrant Legal Defense Fund for Due Process for All, and emergency rental relief. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Ryan Fan, Anna Ramos, and Angel Lopez.
Good evening, Supervisors. This is Belen Hernandez speaking on behalf of Mid-City Canada and its Truth Justice team. We're also a part of CBA, and we are here to propose a fresh approach to addressing juvenile justice issues. You may agree that there is a need for greater prevention so that youth never enter the system. A Department of Youth Development would do exactly that. It would focus on prevention methods. It would also take what's working in our existing diversion and restorative programs and scale it, connecting young people to mentoring, behavioral health care, family support, education, and job pathways instead of deeper system penetration. Similar models exist in large metropolitan areas like Los Angeles and New York, and we respectfully request that you allocate $250,000 to run a feasibility study that could tell us the cost, timeline, and impact of establishing a Department of Youth Development, or DYD for short, in the County of San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors and Chair. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Ryan Fan, and I'm a resident of District 4, and I work for Mejdal, the Arab Community Center of San Diego, which is located in District 2. I'm also part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance, like many other people here. I urge you to include funding for all of those Community Budget Alliance priorities, especially the ILDP, the emergency rental relief and legal assistance, as well as CalFresh staffing. As a public educator and a community worker located in El Cajon, I'm horrified to witness how our vulnerable communities are suffering from federal funding cuts on one side, while combined with the constant and very real threat of ICE detention on the other. I work with students who are afraid to go to school, and they're also worried about feeding themselves because of the upcoming cuts. I work with educators who are dealing with competing guidance from different government entities about what to do, protect the families that they serve / do their job, and sometimes those should never be put in the balance with each other. I also work with healthcare providers and food service workers who are afraid of showing up to work, getting detained, maybe sometimes serving the very people who are threatening their safety. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Ana Ramos. I'm a community organizer with ACE and also a resident of District 1. We're also a part of the Community Budget Alliance like everyone else. We're here to support a people's budget, especially a budget that prioritizes keeping people housed. We constantly hear people receiving eviction notices, and we have so many members that are living out of their cars because they cannot afford to stay housed. And in a moment like this, where we see the federal government making cuts to life-saving public programs while giving millions of dollars to fund ICE to hunt down our people. Keeping people housed is a matter of public safety. And people are scared to go outside, and being houseless only makes people that much more vulnerable. That is why we need you to invest $3 million in an eviction diversion program that mediates between tenants and landlords to resolve issues to prevent evictions. This is what will keep our communities not only housed but safe. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Barbara Pinto, DG, and Lydia Morales.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Angel Lopez. I am a resident of District 1. I am the co-chair of the San Isidro ACE chapter and also part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. I'm an educator at an alternative high school in Chula Vista, and I'm here to urge to fund a one-time $250,000 fee study for Department of Youth Development in San Diego, as it'll be a long-term solution for our youth. And I saw that in 2020 there was $9 million invested into the juvenile detention center in San Diego, and I'd like you to imagine if that money went to prevention instead of making a bigger, stronger juvenile detention center, which actually the numbers went down from 1,000 to 300 of youth in there. So, think about the way that we can use that money instead of putting it into a bigger detention center and use it to invest in our youth for longer term solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Pinto. I'm a resident of District 1, and I'm a member of ACE and also a member of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. I'd just like to say that our government, our administration, is scaring our communities to death. We don't feel protected. I think that we should prioritize our families and housing. Housing is a serious, serious issue. In 2 months, I will be 80 years old. I'm still working. I think about what I'm going to do if I can't afford to pay my rent because continual rent hikes. People losing their jobs, people losing their housing, and children being displaced out of school is very, very scary. So I urge you to prioritize housing and invest in our communities and invest in people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Dee. I'm from District 3. I'm a member of ACE. I urge you to consider funding a one-time $250,000 fee for Department of Youth Development. You're investing a significant amount in public safety and law enforcement during an administration that is already wrapping up surveillance and policing. Our community and our children are being terrorized. I ask you to think of the youth and the future. They're being confined with indoctrinated education 8 hours a day. They receive school shooting trainings and now trainings for ICE raid. Their public spaces are shrinking. Public benches don't exist. What kind of future are you shaping for the youth and the community? They deserve care, not confinement. They deserve libraries, parks, youth resource centers, not remodeled detention centers as you continue to put us in cages and shrink our housing. In Los Angeles, this provided an opportunity for over 1,500 youth to be diverted from the legal system, preventing further harm and justice involvement. 95% of these.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Leticia Kibido, Itzel Maganda Chavez, and Reverend Sherry Metier.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Lydia Morales, and I'm a resident of District 1. I'm a member of ACE organization, and I'm a part of the Community Budget Alliance. I come here to ask you about, I live in San Isidro, and we're suffering the Tijuana River pollution crisis with the terrible air contamination. Please, we have an emergency because the pollution is making me and my family and all the residents in San Isidro, they're making us getting sick, respiratory infections and other types of infections. The Tijuana River pollution is making residents suffering unbearable smells and unhealthy air quality. Please send emergency funds to fix the Tijuana River pollution crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, if I've called your name. If I've called your name, if you could please line up on the arrows in front of the podium, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Itzel Maganda Chavez, and I'm a resident of District 1. I'm the Civic Engagement Director with Alliance San Diego and a part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. We are here because we need our local leaders to put people first and act boldly. Keeping everyone safe, especially immigrants, is critical, and in the face of a complex immigration court system without legal representation, escalating federal attacks have increased the complexity and quantity of people needing legal assistance. Sufficient funding for this program is vital to ensure immigrants have protections in this unjust system. We are asking that you please include at least $7 million in the ILDP funding. Please support our joint efforts as well and include funding for the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, an emergency fund for workers, families, small businesses affected by ICE raids, a Department of Youth Development mediators to assist tenants with eviction diversion, the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, emergency rental relief, and legal assistance and consistent access to safe and affordable and healthy food for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Carmen Penaloza Valdez, Daniel Soria, and Angelica Yella Shawarpu.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. I'm Reverend Sherry Metier, co-founder and executive director of Interfaith Worker Justice and a resident of District 3 and a member of the Community Budget Alliance. And I encourage you to please fully fund the priorities of CBA, especially the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, and so that it can be proactive and not reactive. And tonight, you've heard from my colleagues and my friends, the other advocates for our communities. So I want to leave you with these words, this benediction, good words from Sister Ruth Marlene Fox. May God bless you with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths and superficial relationships so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, County Board of Supervisors. My name is Daniel Soria. I am the Executive Director for the Student Civil Liberties Union of UC San Diego, as well as a volunteer for the American Civil Liberties Union. I'm urging you to fully fund the legal defense program at $7 million and protect critical safety net programs such as housing, healthcare, and nutrition. To me, these investments are not just extras, they are instead the difference between stability and crisis, between families staying together and families being torn apart. When the county fails to fund these programs, I don't think the harm disappears. It just shows up in emergency rooms, jails, and shelters at a significantly higher cost. I also strongly implore you to support the $2,500,000 feasibility study to establish a Department of Youth Development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Carmen. I'm a resident of District 4 and the Policy and Research Intern with YouthWill. Immigrants are often forced to face the complex immigration court system without legal representation, which can make the difference between being allowed to remain safely in the United States with their family or facing permanent separation by deportation to potentially dangerous conditions. Escalating federal attacks have increased the complexity and quantity of people needing legal assistance. It has been 15 years since I experienced my parents in front of me being detained and deported, leaving myself and my siblings homeless. My family had zero idea of what to do. Communication was entirely cut off, and my parents were treated like animals. Militaristic kidnappings are terrorizing communities across San Diego. Sufficient funding for this program is vital to ensure immigrants have some protection in this unjust system. We urge you to include at least $7 million in ILDP funding. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Yasmin Lee, Narissa Gonzalez, and Gabriella Teitsen.
Hello, my name is Angelica Yelishwarpu, and I am an organizer with UCSD Student Civil Liberties Union. As you begin the budget planning process for the upcoming fiscal year and set priorities for the 2026 to 2027 operational plan, we urge you to divest from further funding of the Sheriff's Department while it continues to collaborate with ICE and Border Patrol, agencies whose current practices have been shown to destabilize immigrant communities and increase fear and harm without demonstrable public safety benefit. We ask that you instead reallocate those funds towards the Immigrant Legal Defense Fund. Specifically, we respectfully ask that you reduce the Sheriff's Department budget and strictly limit any funding used for cooperation with federal immigration enforcement in alignment with San Diego's sanctuary jurisdiction status, and reallocate $7 million from these reductions to the Immigrant Legal Defense Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Lee, and I'm a director with the Student Civil Liberties Union San Diego. And I'm here to urge you to fundamentally shift the county's financial priorities. We cannot continue to approve massive budget increases for the Sheriff's Department while they continue to collaborate with ICE and Border Patrol, agencies that actively harm our immigrant communities. This cooperation makes San Diego less safe by eroding trust and making residents afraid to access county services. I ask you to reduce the sheriff's budget and strictly limit funds used for cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Instead, reallocate $7 million towards the Immigrants Legal Defense Program. To be effective, this program must be universal and merit-blind. No neighbor should face deportation proceedings alone because they cannot afford an attorney, and no one should be excluded based on merit screenings that presume guilt. Funding a robust universal defense fund is a proven way to keep families together and stabilize our economy. Funding the sheriff and their continued collaboration with ICE does the exact opposite. Please make the right choice for San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Gabriella Tyson, a member and organizer of the Student Civil Liberties Union at UC San Diego. A people's budget ensures everyone has the right to need to thrive. Right now, we are living through a time of immense crisis, and this county must step up. That means making urgent, people-first investments. One of our top priorities must be strong support for the Immigrant Legal Defense Program. The ILDP protects the San Diego families by ensuring people have access to legal representation and when facing deportation. No one should ever have to face our country's most complex legal systems alone. I am urging you, supervisors, to allocate $7 million for the ILDP and maintain it as a universal merits-blind program so that all immigrants in detention have access to due process. And I ask you to continue investing in safety net programs that keep families stable and communities together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Alejandro Martinez, Vanessa Zucena, and Sarah Bugambi.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Nerissa Gonzalez. I'm a community organizer from Filipino Workers Center and part of San Diego Community Budget Alliance. The federal administration is terrorizing our communities and holding our local governments hostage. We need our local leaders to put people first and act boldly. We need you to include funding for the Labor of Standards Enforcement OLC to defend workers' rights and emergency funds for workers, families, small businesses affected by ICE. A Department of Youth Development, mediators to assist tenants with eviction diversions, the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, emergency rental relief and legal assistance, and consistent access to safe, affordable, healthy food. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. My name is Alejandro. I'm a resident of District 1 and raised in District 4. I'm a member of Mid-City Cannon and a part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. Definitely urge you to please fund all of these CBA budget priorities. When we invest in youth futures, we build healthier, safer, and more resilient communities. Our young people deserve care, opportunity, and support, not confinement. They deserve libraries, parks, healing-centered youth resource hubs, and pathways to success, not remodeled juvenile halls or extended commitment stays that deepen trauma, derail re-entry, and perpetuate harm. We urge you to fund a one-time $250,000 feasibility study to establish a Department of Youth Development. This is not a short-term fix, it's a long-term transformative solution for San Diego County that shifts our system from punishment to prevention, from incarceration to investment. It is time to stop recycling failed approaches that cost more and deliver less. We are done with Band-Aid initiatives. San Diego County needs a bold, sustainable system change, and we need it now. Our youth deserve development, not detention.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our final speaker, Manuel Enriquez, and a final call for Leticia Kibido.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Vanessa Gonzalez. I am a resident of District 5, a member of the Youth Justice Team of Mid-City Can, and also part of CBA. When we invest in youth futures, we make our community safer and healthier and safer. Our youth deserve care, not confinement. They deserve libraries, parks, youth resource centers, not remodeled juvenile halls, and extended commitment stays that further traumatize and impede re-entry into the community. As a resident support specialist and credible messenger for my sisters, I hear every day their advocacy in treating mental health as an illness and not as a crime. Being able to be their voice and representing the trauma of physical holds and other harmful de-escalation techniques, and the lack of accountability that these juvenile detention centers have on their mental and overall physical health. The family and kids I know were subjected to these alternatives. They are still fighting sobriety in sober living homes, correction facilities, and the mental health trauma that these juvenile centers and treatment centers have attempted to provide, but instead treat these developmental behaviors with consequences and instead with long-term solutions. We urge you to fund a $250,000 fee study for Department of Youth Development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Sara Gonzalez. I am an educator and sociologist that lives in Imperial Beach, but works all over the San Diego County, from Oceanside all the way to San Isidro. So I know that there are many immediate needs in our budget, but we need to start servicing and stop deservicing our youth in San Diego. Each day I hear parents struggling to gain services for their students, basic services, and the opportunities for youth have been limited, and students are scared and they're unable to envision their future lives and even the capacity of being able to stay in San Diego in the future without becoming homeless. There has been students have been left without resources by the federal government, so it's essential that the county invest in a one-time $250K facility study for a Department of Youth Development in the County of San Diego during your binational community meeting. So today, I want to leave you with 30. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be followed by Sonia Parikh.
Hello, my name is Manuel Enriquez. I'm a resident of District 1 and an organizer with the Center on Policy Initiatives. A study from Rutgers University estimates that San Diego County has more than $400 million stolen in minimum wages every year, making that about $300 per worker affected here in San Diego per month. In a study we conducted with SDSU, we found that young workers under 24 are 2 times more likely to be paid under the minimum wage, and immigrant workers and those in service sectors are also highly impacted. Wage theft is the largest form of theft in the country. Last month, I received testimony from 3 maintenance workers who experienced wage theft for more than a year and have filed claims with the state. It has been over 2 years, and they are still waiting for a judgment so that they can receive a payment on wages stolen from them from their workplace. Every worker deserves dignity and respect. We urge you to expand the Workplace Justice Fund and hire additional investigators in the Office of Labor and Standards Enforcement to make sure every worker...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Sona Parikh, and I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the Forest Ranch Library to advocate for the allocation of funds in the budget to expand our small but dearly loved and very well utilized library that is a real community center in Forest Ranch. As a resident of the community for over 20 years, I have seen firsthand how the community has grown manyfold, and also how our library has valiantly struggled to keep up with the demand for library services. The Forest Ranch Library has the smallest footprint out of the county's 33 library branches, but it is consistently among the top 5 in circulation. We have a small community room that is always heavily booked, sometimes shared by multiple groups at once, and very frequently overflowing its capacity during library programs to the point where we often need to use the parking lot for programs. We've been requesting funds to expand our community room space and our library for several budget cycles now. We sincerely hope...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments. We will start with our first caller.
Chair Lawson-Remer and board members, good evening. Dan Silver, Endangered Habitats League. We ask you to remember how important the Multiple Species Conservation Program is to the county's future. Last year, the Parks and Recreation budget for land acquisition was zeroed out. This crippled Preserve Assembly. It is vital that funding be restored. Natural open space is dear to communities, their recreation, and sense of place. And as you know, the MSCP provides major economic benefits of housing and infrastructure streamlined permitting. We also lose state and federal funds if local funds do not form a partnership. Once land is lost, it's gone forever. Please restore these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next speaker. The next speaker is
Consuelo here.
Go ahead.
Consuelo here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Consuelo.
Andrew, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, because my time is going and you need to let me know. Thank you so much. Okay, brothers and sisters, now do you see what happens when big government, what they do? Do you see what happens when we sit around waiting on funding from federal government? We are more than a rich enough county not to be dependent on the feds. Yet here we are, delayed, constrained, and compromised because we've been trained to wait for permission. That always comes with strings attached. Begging for our own money. Ain't that some shit? Okay, question also. Where was the outrage when the Obama administration deported millions of people? Oh, that's right. Social media and your TVs weren't telling you to be outraged then, right? Selective outrage is pathetic, quite frankly. And it's time for people to wake up to the whole divide and conquer tactics that work over and over. Different parties, same outcome. Different administrations, same loss for all of us.
Hear from the next caller.
Hey, it's Truth. Hello to the county leering center full of fraud and corruption. People paying property taxes is critical for the budget, so why is Manuela still delinquent on her taxes? Budget priority, reduce the budget, refund the savings, and prioritize American citizens, not illegal aliens. Sue Newscott for creating a $22 billion deficit. It can't blame Trump for that. Eliminate budget-eating project labor agreements. Build sidewalks, crosswalks, and storm infrastructure for Spring Valley. Clean Smuggler's Gulch more than once a year. No more raiding the reserves for union bonuses and other conflict of interest BS. Eliminate all funding to grifting NGOs like SBCS, Catholic Charities, Alliance San Diego, ACE, and many more who read scripts while benefiting from human trafficking for California's modern-day slave trade. Prioritize cooperation with ICE to deport illegal aliens like the drunk driver who killed 8-year-old Aria Asensio Cruz in Julian. Defund all programs for illegal aliens and replace it with the Illegal Immigrant Violence Reparation Fund. California does not stand with Minnesota or their terrorists violating our Constitution and attacking our federal law enforcement. The flag is half-mast for the dead budget, if anything.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Hi, good evening, Chair and Supervisors. My name is Gil Vera, Director of the Housing Justice Collaborative at Legal Aid Society San Diego. We administer the Tenant Legal Services Program, providing low-income San Diegans with free legal help, case management, and rental assistance to prevent homelessness. In 2024, 91% of our households we served avoided homelessness when their cases were closed, and 81% remained in their homes. Free civil legal services are life-changing, practical, and financially smart. Just as preventative health care avoids costly ER visits, eviction prevention avoids high public costs of homelessness. A single chronically homeless person can cost the government up to $50,000 per year, while the 2024 TLS averaged about $1,300 per household for legal services, case management, and rental assistance. Due to losses in federal funding, the TLS was cut by 40% in 2026. The heaviest impact of the 40% cut will fall on residents of District 1, 2, and 5 who will face reduced access to free housing legal services and a greater risk of homelessness. I respectfully ask you to commit to further investments in eviction prevention. It's humane, cost-effective, and...
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Gianna Giacalone, and I'm a resident of District 4. I strongly support funding for critical county programs that are facing cuts and growing demand, including healthcare, housing, and nutrition services our communities rely on. Our top priorities must be strong support for the Immigrant Legal Defense Program. No one should have to face one of our country's most complicated legal systems alone, and all people deserve due process. I urge you to allocate $7 million to ILDP and maintain it as a universal merits-aligned program so all immigrants in detention have access to due process. Demand for immigration legal services continues to rise as more residents face detention and deportation amid continuously escalating enforcement tactics, making it vital for the county to continue to invest in this now and in the future. In this moment, San Diego County has a moral obligation to step up where the federal government has failed. The county budget should be transparent, build and sustain systems of care for county residents in line with our shared values of justice and equity. We need strong county leadership to make these urgent, people-first investments that reflect the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Good evening, Chair Lawson Reamer and board members. My name is Felix Maximus Felix. I'm the chair for the Sweetwater Community Planning Group, and today I speak to you as a community resident. Should monies become available, I respectfully request that the Department of Parks and Rec receive adequate funding for the Sweetwater Community Planning Group's Trail and Pathways Plan for the PLDO and Recreation Program and Priority Lists for fiscal year 2025 through 2026. The item should include the following: upgrading and hardening trails number 61, number 106, and completion of project trail number 45. In addition, we need to add trash cans, recycling bins, and park benches every 1/4 to half miles to our trail routes. Lastly, we need to convert our abandoned animal shelter into a recreation center with trail use, fitness, and after-school programs. The rec center programs and trails will be important in preserving and protecting a valuable resource and community heritage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Hello, Supervisors. Thank you for your time. My name is Nyla She/Her, and I am here on behalf of Trans Family Support Services and the San Diego LGBTQIA Regional Table to urge you to continue to support the fully funding of the innovative adult housing services and enhanced housing services. Living in San Diego, it's increasingly unaffordable, and for many residents, especially LGBTQ community members, the rising cost of housing
has made stability out of reach. LGBTQ people experience higher rates of housing instability and homelessness due to discrimination, family rejection, and economic inequalities. These housing programs play a critical role in addressing those disparities before people lose their housing entirely. By focusing on prevention and stabilization, these services help people remain housed, which is both more humane and far more cost-effective than responding after displacement. These contracts have already demonstrated strong outcomes.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
My name is CJ Mendoza. I'm an outreach and organizing intern at YouthWell and a part of the San Diego Community Budget Alliance. I'm here to urge you to fund a one-time $250K fee study for the Department of Youth Development. This Department of Youth Development envisions a long-term support system for youth growth. We model juvenile halls to stunt youth development, and our youth deserve development, not detention. They deserve libraries, parks, youth resource centers, and programs that advance their skill set growth. Investing in the study for this department would mean addressing the roots of why San Diego's young people are ending up in juvenile hall. It means looking beyond the statistics and humanizing the data, realizing that these young people in juvenile hall have stories to tell and skills to grow. Again, our young people in San Diego deserve development, not detention. Invest in youth futures, not restriction. Thank you.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
All aboard, priorities. 1, police, fire, ambulance, emergency services. It's especially important when Mexico is deporting gangbangers, San Diego, and other American cities. Did the D.C. turkeys think that deporting and killing Americans and foreigners was a one-way street? It must have to also increase crime. 2, housing. Quick housing like 3D printed homes, gnome homes, shipping crate homes, even Adobe homes, which can also be built quickly to keep up with the housing need and not to result in an oversupply of expensive housing. Keep rents and contingency fees low. Also, more housing for the truly low income. 30% AMI per HUD.
We'll hear from the next caller.
Hey, how you guys doing this fine and lovely day? I love the NGO parade that we had today. No one is asking for accountability on them, especially coming from California, but yet we want to continuously dump money. Well, let me go ahead and tell you what I project. The fraud pipeline that Trump now has in his hands, you know, all the numbers, the organizations that's happening. Here's my quick question. If you were to go ahead and basically look for prosecution, you know, arrest these people, let's just say right after you mail out the ballots, what do you think he's going to find? I know you don't want to release the NVRA regulations. This is the same location that I asked Tara to investigate. Tara doesn't want to investigate these issues. So I look forward to your guys' rhetoric and spreading the division, because the flashpoint will give me my end result.
So we'll hear from the next caller.
Good evening. My name is Jack Daly, the Director of Health Policy at Legal Aid Society of San Diego. Thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback in this budget priority setting process. For over 25 years, Legal Aid Society's Consumer Center for Health Education and Advocacy has served to support San Diegans access to health coverage and needed care. In the best of times, the Consumer Center and a rich network of community-based organizations, clinics, and other partners work to catch and support vulnerable San Diegans that fall through the cracks of our healthcare coverage and physical and behavioral health care delivery systems. Federal and state budget, and policy changes, many of which will play out over the next several years, will lead to a loss of coverage and access to care barriers for upwards of 2 million Californians and likely over 100,000 San Diegans. We urge the County of San Diego to continue to prioritize supports that serve to protect San Diegans from these policy changes, including robust support for legal services and those CBO partners of the county working to mitigate the harm caused by these changes, and sufficient resources for the county to...
We'll now hear from the final caller.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing. I'm a survivor of violent crime, child abduction, and a subsequent ruptured aneurysm that took place in San Diego as a result of being completely abandoned and totally tortured by the county and city of San Diego, certain agencies like the DA's office, for example. So what I'm suggesting is that we stop contracting with dope dealers. Do you know what I mean? Like awarding $5 million of county dollars towards these rehab programs that are actually filled with dope dealers. We shouldn't be contracting with people like that. And we should be doing due diligence on these contracts as well. Like, I don't know, following the law, the Brown Act, that sort of thing. Googling names, like, for example, Augusto Salerno, pill mill operator, when this stuff is being reported directly to you, but you want to keep the stables full to get the insurance fraud kickbacks. So I'm just requesting that the RICO enterprise that has been operating takes a really close look before they put...
You and Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. I do want to give my colleagues an opportunity to share any initial reactions. Obviously, this is the very beginning of our kind of engagement with public comment, but this was, I found, really helpful. So I do have some remarks in response, but I would love to begin with my colleague, Chair Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank everybody who took the time to come out tonight. Obviously, this is the first step of many to come, but I know how difficult it can be if you're working full-time and you have a family, and to make the time to come and share your priorities with us, I really appreciate them. I also want to ground this conversation in what people in my district are experiencing right now, because budgets are not just financial documents, but they're trust documents. And for too long, many communities in South County have felt left behind, and that has led to a level of distrust. Today, that strain is being intensified by what's happening at the federal level. The Trump administration's actions, especially around immigration, are sowing real fear throughout the county. Families are afraid to go to work, afraid to send their kids to school, afraid to access health care or public services they are legally entitled to. That fear doesn't stay contained. It pushes people into the shadows, delays care, and turns manageable problems today into full-blown crises tomorrow. At the same time, we're facing real and imminent federal cuts to programs that support our most vulnerable residents, including health care, food assistance, housing stability, and behavioral health. And those residents are disproportionately concentrated in District 1. When those support systems are weakened or pulled back, the county doesn't save money. We inherit the costs through increased emergency room use, more unhoused families, more untreated addiction, prolonging exposure to pollution, and hungry children who cannot learn and develop. So when we talk about fiscal constraints, I want to be very clear. Inaction is not neutral. Delayed intervention means higher downstream costs, greater system strain, and deeper harm to communities that are already carrying more than their fair share. This is why, in a year like this, prioritization has to come first. I want to be careful not to equate mandated with core. Some of the most essential county responsibilities, public health protection, housing stability, homeless prevention, and early behavioral health intervention, are not just policy choices. They are risk management strategies informed directly by community experience and emerging federal harm. I also want to emphasize the importance of meaningful community input, especially from historically underserved areas. District 1 residents have been clear about what they need: stability before crisis, prevention before punishment, and protection from environmental and economic harm. When those voices aren't reflected in the budget, trust erodes and the county ends up paying more later. As staff build the upcoming budget, what I'm looking for is priority first budgeting, clear sequencing that protects the investments that prevent greater harm, higher costs, and further erosion of trust. That means being willing to make harder trade-offs in lower impact areas to protect communities most exposed to federal retreat and political targeting. I appreciate the work staff is doing under difficult conditions, and I look forward to continuing this conversation as the CAO recommended budget comes forward. For District 1, community input, preparedness for federal impacts, economic opportunity, and upstream prevention of harm must be central to how we define what's truly core. That is how we protect the long-term well-being of our residents and fiscal health of the county. I also want to acknowledge the support I heard today and via e-comments for the Immigrant Legal Defense Program. I hear you. I've spoken about the importance of our community members having legal representation. We have dedicated ourselves to this issue and will continue to do so in the future. I also want to thank everyone who spoke out in support of exploring the creation of a Department of Youth Development. I think their request reflects a long overdue shift in how we see young people as individuals with potential to be nurtured. I strongly support prioritization of the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement's investigative capacity in this budget. When we fund enforcement, we are sending a clear message that wage theft will not be tolerated and that workers in this county deserve to keep every dollar they earn through their hard work. I look forward to working closely with our brand new County Counsel, Mr. Damon Brown, to strengthen enforcement tools and coordination. Effective wage protection depends on investigations that lead to real consequences and meaningful compliance, not just policies on paper. I also want to uplift the advocacy for the LGBTQIA Adult Housing Center, also for the Eviction Diversion Program, the Mount Hood Recreation Center, and the Emergency Fund for Families Separated by ICE, the Global Village Refugee Center, Refugee and Resilience Center, and Safe and Affordable Food for All. This is going to be a long, ongoing conversation, but I just want to say I thank you for being here. We hear you, and we're absolutely going to make sure that this is the people's budget. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Pro Tem. Anyone else have any comments? Okay. I'll just take a moment. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here and for being really thoughtful with your input. I want to uplift, mostly for our county team, some key themes I heard tonight. I definitely heard a focus on continuing to ensure legal representation for our immigrant communities. And I did hear y'all snuck in and asked to increase the budget to $7 million. So landed, heard. Thank you. So I just noting and appreciative of all of your work on that. I also wanted to uplift the voices I heard really concerned about the housing affordability crisis that we face in our community, and particularly what we can do to better protect tenants and to continue to invest in tenant legal services and the mediation between tenants and landlords so that folks can work out solutions instead of ending up on the streets. I think a number I heard, I might have gotten this wrong, but I wrote it down. I wrote down 3 million. I think that's what I heard from people. Getting a thumbs up from some folks from ACE, so thank you. Heard, can't make promises, but I just do appreciate the sort of specificity and the vision around that. So both of those pieces definitely were uplifted for me. I also heard, the kind of the need and the desire for the youth department, and I think that that's something I'm interested in continuing a conversation around. A little less sort of clearly baked for purposes of this budget, but I think it's obviously something that's come up in other conversations I've had, and I think this is a good place to uplift this and begin thinking about that kind of for the longer term. And I also certainly heard kind of concerns and a need to continue investing in tackling our Tijuana sewage crisis with a lot more focus and continuing to try to move the needle on something that's plagued our community for far too long. I know there were other issues. I think there were some really good ideas around like particular parks in particular neighborhoods, and I appreciate people coming and identifying your own community's needs. I think this is a good time to do that. So hopefully the supervisors whose district those were in noted that. They were not in my district, but I did note that someone should have noted those down. I think those are really important things to flag as we put the budget together. I will say, in my experience, when I was elected, it's a long time ago now, but when I was elected, we had this, there was a budget that didn't make any sense from my predecessor of sort of some infrastructure spending in my district. And we did a community survey, and I think one of the things I'm most proud of was not an idea I thought of. It came from the community. It was to invest in the Mira Mesa Epicenter and really build out a space for young people in Mira Mesa and people had never had that space before or hadn't had it since the 80s. And that came from, not from me, that was from community leaders saying, hey, look, this is a need. So that I just appreciate that and think it's really critical, and I think it's where the best ideas come from. So not big thoughts, but more just kind of some notes, and I hope we can continue getting lots of feedback and lots of input. And if you said something awesome and I forgot to mention it, it's probably in my notes, but I don't want it to be here all night. So anyway, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all of your thought and your work on trying to actually make our county function and be accountable to humans who live in our community. It's not an easy task. I know it's often thankless. I know you all, have families and you could be home with your families tonight. So thank you for prioritizing the public good, because we need you. Thank you. Okay, so we now proceed with our adjournments in memory. Today's first adjournment will be presented by Supervisor Desmond in memory of Dan McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Today we adjourn in memory of Dan McAllister, a man whose life was defined by his service, integrity, and his quiet excellence. Dan was first elected in 2002, and he served as a San Diego County continuously until his retirement in August of 2025. Under his leadership, our county funds earned the highest possible Fitch ratings for a record 25 consecutive years. His office achieved AAA ratings, and 99% of our taxes were collected year after year. He worked to help keep our county strong, stable, and safe. Dan carried out his duties with professionalism, discipline, and foresight, earning the lasting confidence of taxpayers and colleagues alike. Beyond his official role, he gave generously of his time to organizations such as the Peace Corps, Habitat for Humanity, Cal Trust, and the San Diego County Employees Retirement Association, and he lived his values through service to the Jackie Robinson YMCA and the Boy Scouts. Dan McAllister leaves behind a legacy of stewardship and service that will endure for generations. We mourn his passing, will miss him deeply, and extend our sincere condolences to his family, friends, and all who were honored to work alongside him. Rest in peace, Dan McAllister.
Thank you. And today's final adjournment in memory will be presented by Chair Pro Tem Aguirre in memory of Robert Vasquez Sr. and Alex Preddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two adjournments tonight. First, I would like to adjourn today's meeting in memory of my friend and community member, Robert Vasquez. Robert Vasquez was a longtime Imperial Beach resident, businessman, and former planning director who died peacefully at his home surrounded by his loved ones on January 10th at the age of 86. Robert was born in Los Angeles in 1939. He was a graduate of Hollywood High School and California State University, Long Beach. In 1979, he married his beloved wife of 47 years, Yvonne Rossini Vasquez. Robert had a long and distinguished career in urban planning and real estate. He served as planning director for the city of Imperial Beach in 1978 and 1979, and later held planning leadership positions with Daly City, the city of San Mateo, and the San Jose Redevelopment Agency. He also established his own urban planning and real estate consulting business. Deeply committed to civic life, Robert was active in numerous community organizations. He served as president of the Belmont Rotary Club for 2 years before moving to Imperial Beach in 2001 with his wife Yvonne and their son Robert Jr. In Imperial Beach, Bob became a familiar and beloved presence. He was often seen holding hands with his wife on their daily walks, dining at local restaurants, and participating in civic events and causes. He served on Mayor Dedina's advisory committee, helped form the Imperial Beach Democratic Club, and served as its first vice president, was a strong supporter of the Imperial Beach Neighborhood Center, and was active in the Lions Club. He loved music and was an avid concert goer. Those who knew Bob remember him as a thoughtful, kind, and gentle man with a warm sense of humor, who cared deeply about his family and the Imperial Beach community. Bob was always the first to step up, responding to emergencies, helping feed seniors and the unsheltered, and supporting fundraising events that benefit the people of Imperial Beach. I will always remember Bob as part of an inseparable duo, always ready to attend a community event or watch an Imperial Beach sunset, smiling and full of joy alongside his beloved Yvonne. In addition to his wife Yvonne and son Robert Jr., Robert is survived by 2 brothers, nieces, and nephews, and many, many dear friends. Bob will be sorely, sorely missed by all of us. Donations in Robert's memory may be made to the Imperial Beach Neighborhood Center at ibneighbor.org. My second adjournment and motion to adjourn is in memory of Alex Preddy, Keith Porter Jr., and all the lives lost in the hands of ICE agents. Alex was a 37-year-old intensive care nurse at the Minneapolis Veterans Affairs, a man who dedicated his professional life to healing our nation's veterans and caring for the most vulnerable among us. His family describes him as a kind-hearted soul who cared deeply for his family and friends. Keith Porter Jr. was a 34-year-old father whose life was cut tragically short. Known to his loved ones as warm, generous, kind, and a gentle soul, Keith was more than just a statistic. He was a son, a nephew, and a devoted father. We also adjourn in memory of the other individuals that have been killed in the hands of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement since 2025. These were people who came to our country seeking safety, opportunity, or a new beginning. Instead, they were met with a system that failed to preserve their most basic right, the right to life. I would like to name each of them so they will not be forgotten. Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, Henry Ruiz Guillen, Sarawit Gezag Dejen, Nicole Renee Good, Maxim Chernak, Juan Alexis Tineo Martinez, Brian Rayon Garzon, Neon Noknu Wen, Marie Ang Blaze, Abelardo Avellaneda Delgado, Jesus Molina Vella, Johnny Noviello, Isidro Perez, Tien Swan Fan, Lorenzo Antonio Batres Vargas, Oscar Rascón Duarte, Santos Reyes Vanegas, Ismael Ayala Uribe, Norlan Guzmán Fuentes, Miguel Ángel García Hernández, Wabin Shehe, Leo Cruz Silva, Hassan Ali Mohamed Saleh, José Castro Rivera, Gabriel García Áviles, Pará Dila, Geraldo Lunas Campos, Nenko Stanev Ganchev, Víctor Manuel Díaz, Carlos Roberto Montoya Valdés, Chao Fang Ge, Ki Yi Wong, Francisco Gaspar Andrés, Pete Sumalo Montejo, Shiraz Fateh Hala Sachewan, Jean Wilson Brutus, Fuad Sahid Abdullah Kadir, Delvin Francisco Rodríguez, Eber Sánchez Domínguez, Luis Beltrán Yáñez Cruz, Luis Gustavo Núñez Cáceres. In their name, we adjourn.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, the board will be in recess until tomorrow, Wednesday, January 28th at 9 a.m. for our general legislative and land use session.